Welcome to the PopCult Podcast. This is episode 5. We are here with the usuals. How are you doing, Tommy?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. I'd had to catch up on the last 2 episodes of The Last of Us, so I've been better.
Oh, come on, no.
And so we will get straight into it. Our first up on discussion is we'll catch up on episode 4 and episode 5 of The Last of Us.
I've made my feelings quite clear in the past few videos, but overall, I am very conflicted. I am so confused by this show, man, because I keep fluctuating between two states of being. On one hand, I'm enjoying the excellently crafted action sequences.
Yeah.
We've had plenty of infected action in the second season. Episode 1, episode 2 had plenty. A little bit of a slower episode with 3 for obvious reasons, but I think we've seen infected in every single episode so far. So I think they responded pretty well to the criticism of that first season. You know, the first season was really good, but one of the criticisms that it got was that, there wasn't enough infected action, which was such a central part of the Last of Us experience in the game. So, well done there. I think the team that is in charge of the action stuff is doing a really good job, and it's interpreting the flair of like the Last of Us action in a very unique way. In episode 4, we'll get to it, I guess. We even get a nice little stealthing around moment with the WLF soldiers and Dina and Ellie kind of like sneaking around. And I think the show is really nailing these recreations while grounding them in the realism that is necessary for the story to work in a TV show setting, let's say. It's never a set piece just for the sake of it. There's always, something else going on. And this is one hand. The other end is just that some of the dialogue and characters' decisions and the logic of certain interactions just escapes me. They are making so many questionable changes to the source material, and I'll dive deep into it later on. But I don't. I mean, we wanted them to change things, but I don't think they're changing the right ones, if you get my meaning. I don't know if you agree.
The changes have been very weird. Like I think we mentioned before, like setting up that Abby and her crew in the first episode of season 2 were what their goals were. That was quite a good change for the story.
Yeah.
But things like it's more like the specific dialogue or character moment changes. I'm just thinking of the probably the most egregious example from episode 4 was Ellie's reaction to Dina being pregnant in the games.
Oh, we're skipping all the way to that.
Just as a good example of one major change that is so much better in the game. It's and it's not like the part 2 of the game is doing everything fantastically either. It's just bizarre changes.
Like, I want to judge the show on its own merits, right? And if they're making these changes, there must be a reason. They have an end goal. They must be thinking, okay, if I want to change things down the line to have this very impactful story moment, then I have to change these other things around so, everything makes sense later on. But based on my knowledge of the game's story, I'm noticing all these changes, and I don't think they improve the story they're trying to tell. And we'll get to the, I'm going to be at that moment. But another example that I have that is relevant to the beginning of this episode is something that I've mentioned in the review for episode 3, right? That we are starting to see the ramifications of that decisions now. So they changed the timeline of events, right? In a way that makes me think that the end result won't be as effective as it is in the game, and the game has questionable logics and plot progression. So that's already kind of like its own problem that they are facing. But unless they're changing the theme, but it doesn't seem likely because they're following the game's story pretty closely. After Joel's death, we jump 3 months into the future, right? And that alone is a huge deal to me, because Ellie in the game, and in the show as well, is fueled by anger and revenge. And if she had 3 months to lay in bed and process her grief, it's so much worse for her character that she's still so ready to go and like split people's throats open. They changed Tommy's character in the game. As I said, he chases after Abby right away, and he's also fueled by revenge, because revenge is one of the main themes of the story. And here he stays in Jackson. And at first I thought they did this because they wanted a POV character in Jackson, right?
But we
Same
haven't.
reason.
Yeah, we haven't gone back there once yet.
Yeah, same reason he was swapped with Dina in episode 2 during Joel's patrol. They wanted him to be there for the siege. But based on what we learn in episode 5, I'm guessing this is not the case.
No,
But-
it seems like they wanted. That was more. It's more about just taking away Tommy's moments and giving them to other characters they'd rather focus on in the show. It would have still probably been more heartfelt a moment if Tommy was there, an actual family member to see Joel's death, and have Dina as the POV character. But I think they would rather have Dina have more of a reason to go on this revenge mission, rather than seeing as Tommy, they knew preemptively that Tommy was never going to go. And I think it's a bad choice in the end. And also, you lose that mystery element. During Ellie and Dina's journey to Seattle, they're seeing all these dead bodies strewn around the floor, and they're working out. And there is an element of, is Tommy doing this? Maybe Tommy's going on a rampage and he's killing all these people. Yeah. And you've lost that crucial element of mystery there, with Tommy just staying in Jackson and not doing anything now.
Well, I mean, we learn in episode 5 that that's not actually the case. But, changing characters around is hurting the story in ways that we haven't really seen how they're going to impact, like, the final result. But speaking of Dina, you were mentioning Dina. What is her deal, dude? Like, I really liked her performance in the first few episodes, but now I am puzzled because, and again, episode 5 sheds light on some of this, but she wants revenge for Joel as much, if not more, than Ellie.
It makes no sense.
Okay, they gave us, like 2 scenes between her and Joel to justify this anger that she feels, and then she connects the grief for Joel's death to her own grief for when she lost her parents, her mother and her sister, I'm guessing. And the way they change the orders in which like certain reveals happen, it makes her decision to stay in Seattle after realizing she is pregnant, spoiler alert, so much less believable. Why would you risk your life and your child's life?
Exactly, and it makes her a completely irresponsible character now. It's like you said, she has no reason to stay on this revenge mission. There's even a couple moments in this last episode where they're like, "Oh shit, what are we doing? We should turn back." And it's like they even have a moment where Ellie, says to her, "It's like, what are we doing? This is our final moment. We either go back or we don't." And they decide to continue on, and it just doesn't make any sense.
It's lip service. They knew that people would complain, so they threw a line in there so that Ellie acknowledges that this is fucked up.
But if anything, acknowledging it makes it worse, because they just continue on this stupid adventure of theirs.
They are in Seattle. By the way, they're already in Seattle. Everything is happening in Seattle. But, there's an army there, and the scene where Ellie reveals her immunity to her was so bizarre. So, okay, we have this sequence of events. They are exploring, they run away. Amazing sequence, the one with the infected and the WLF soldiers chasing after them, and then they kind of like have to go into the subway and through the subway train. And I felt that's exactly how I feel when I am going on my morning commute, so that was very relatable. But then she gets bit. because they have to establish that Ellie is immune, which happens differently in a game, because in the game, as we kind of like went into last time, but like in the game, you have this thing with the spores that they decided to drop until they didn't.
Yeah, I thought that was weird when they were talking about, we have to seal them down there. I was like, and are they now doing airborne? Like, are
Yeah,
they
they're doing
now?
spores
Yeah.
again. I kind of understand the and I will explain why. But first, she protects Dina from this infected. She gets bitten, and Dina thinks, "Oh my god, you're gonna turn. You're gonna be infected now. Fuck, what are we gonna do?" And then she manages to convince her not to shoot her, and proves to her that she's immune, that she's not gonna turn. And as soon as this huge like bombshell reveal happens, she like the first thing she thinks of saying, Dina thinks of saying, is I'm pregnant. And then they have sex right after.
It's
Like,
so weird because I saw the scene already memed on like social media or whatever, so I knew that was going to happen before I saw the episodes. But I couldn't believe how closely it was to those two moments. It's literally the next line of dialogue. I'm immune. Then it's like I'm pregnant. It's like, what kind of segue was that to that conversation? And then yeah, like you said, and then they just start having sex, and it's bizarre.
I I don't follow their logic, to be honest, because yes, Dina was scared, and they established that really well. You know, she's pointing the gun to a person that she really cares about. So she's really scared, and she clearly is scared for her unborn baby, which makes you think, oh, why would you stay in Seattle then if there's an army there that could kill you? But anyway, it was a vulnerable moment for both of them. And they are opening their hearts to each other, revealing who they are underneath, if you will. You know, so I get what they were trying to do, but it feels like, the thematic relevance of them getting physically closer after becoming emotionally closer, was prioritized over the logic of the
Yeah,
moment
and
itself. Like, oh,
you could still have that moment and them two ending up having an affectionate moment together at the end of the scene, but it was too abrupt. Like, we actually didn't mention the one of the stupidest bits of this scene was, they're running away from that horde of infected, and some of them sort of get jammed in the turnstile doors of the subway.
yeah,
And let's it doesn't look like they're going to be stuck there forever necessarily. They're kind of breaking out already, and Ellie and Dina leave that building and they see a building literally across the street, and they're like, "Oh, let's go take shelter there." Across the street from the horde we're running away from, literally across the road. And they go into this big auditorium. It's like an old theatre, and they're like, "Oh, don't worry, we'll barricade the door." And you watch Ellie drags a fucking rolling computer chair over to the door and puts it up against the door. This show has no realism anymore. The believability is down to almost zero to me. And everything in between doesn't feel legit. It feels like I'm watching two actors playing dress up on a set now. It's like lost all believability for me. And I think partly is because of this weird whimsical change of tone that we have constantly. Like any time we're not being attacked by the infected, Ellie and Dina are basically on a romantic getaway, and they're laughing and joking, quipping with each other and being snarky, and there's just no element of realism. And again, my gripes with how the characters look in terms of makeup and hair and how disheveled they're supposed to be. We see them sleeping on the floor of this old abandoned building, and they wake up and Dina's hair is perfectly curled again and her mascara looks great. Oh, it's just
yeah.
ridiculous now.
And also, like I saw someone pointing in this out. Like they did a little Photoshop of Ellie's haircut from the game onto Balaram's face. Like they were not trying to, like, I don't. It was an interesting look because it makes more sense for them to have shorter hair. Dina in the game has like a little bun. Uh, Ellie has short hair. All the female characters have short hair because long hair gets in the fucking way. And if you're running
Yeah.
away from clickers and raiders, you don't need any extra problem. Like, and your visibility needs to be 100%. So, like, I think the makeup department is to blame here, because if they
Oh,
just gave
totally.
her a different haircut, that you wouldn't have to worry so much about, oh, her flowy black hair needs to be lush and beautiful, and no, doesn't need to be. It can just be a little, a little bun like in the game, and so you don't have to worry about that, and it's realistic that they are walking around, like that. I don't know.
It just looks so silly. Little touches like that just believe, oh, this person has been, unwashed for all this time. Oh my god, there was such a funny bit actually. There's a bit
Go on.
after Ellie and Dina they've had sex and they wake
Uh-huh.
up the next morning and Dina's like, "Oh no, don't kiss me, you've got morning breath."
Oh my
And it's
god.
like and then they wake up and
Do you
they
even have toothpaste in the post-apocalypse, dude? Like, what the
no,
fuck?
but they brush their teeth with beef jerky. They wake up and they eat a couple pieces of beef jerky, and that's them brushing their teeth. And then, but you look at their teeth, and their teeth are fucking all perfectly white.
I
It's
mean, have you
like,
ever tried? Maybe beef jerky is the answer, dude. Like, I don't know.
honestly, it's crazy. And then it's just like, well, actually, I don't think you mind. This girl just fingered you with her like disgusting, bleeding, infected hand. Do you really care about morning breath?
Dude. Yeah. No, I get you. I get your meaning. And also, I also thought that was weird to address that in a post-apocalypse where, your sense of smell should just be gone, because
Yeah,
you know
everyone
what?
stinks like shit. And again, like you just said, they addressed it. It wouldn't have been as much of an issue if you don't address it. But you address it in one scene, but 2 seconds before, it's not an issue. Is why it's just so all over the place. It's like 5 different people are writing each
Yeah.
scene. It's so weird.
And I thought I saw a tweet or like a comment of someone saying like, "Oh, finally someone addresses morning breath in relationship. This show is amazing." And I'm like, are we
What
watching
an
the same
idiot.
thing? Because like, why would that be a point to the show that they are addressing this? Like, I actually was taken out of the scene.
Whilst we're on that scene, I suppose, yeah, the most memed moment in all of The Last of Us, and
Yeah.
potentially, might be like one of the cringiest things I've ever seen in a TV show. Honestly,
You are exaggerating.
I'm actually not exaggerating. I was
Mhm.
in hysterics, and I showed a few people this scene as well who don't watch the show, and they were also in hysterics. It's such a ridiculous line of dialogue to have, and I think it's supposed to be a bit of a joke in when Ellie's saying it.
Sure, of course.
Dina says she's
tongue in
pregnant.
cheek.
Yeah, Dina says she's pregnant, and Ellie goes, "Well, we're all having a baby, and I'm going to be the dad." But just because of a lot of the other messages in the show, it's hard not to take this as, oh, this is legit. This isn't necessarily a joke. This is a real statement that Ellie's making. Not even the fact that how cringe it is, just how done dirty Jesse gets as well.
Yeah, like that was exactly.
That's the thing that annoyed me the most. It's like Jesse comes up literally in passing. She's like, "Oh, it is Jesse, right? Who you slept with? Jesse is the biological father of this dad." Obviously, she doesn't say that. And then she's like, "Yeah, it is Jesse." And she's like, "Oh, well, I guess I'm gonna be the dad." It's like, what's Jesse gonna be?
Yeah, exactly. Like, and as soon as they, open up to each other and have sex, then that's a relationship, and you are dropping your on and off boyfriend for the last few years, and just going with this girl, and accepting that she's gonna be like, you are already imagining a future where she is, raising the child with you, and Jesse's not in the picture. I am so confused. Like, I am gonna be a dad, okay. It's a moment, as we said, has already been memed to death. I don't want to add to that conversation because I think it can become very toxic. But what you are saying is absolutely fair. I don't have a problem with her saying it. I don't even have a problem with her thinking it, because she's, a young girl, she's in love, and okay, it's fine. It's not a great line, but whatever. What I have a problem with is what you're saying about Jesse, and also just Ellie's bubbly, happy-go-lucky personality
Yeah,
throughout this whole thing. in a moment where she is on a blood path, on a revenge path. She is willing to risk Dina's life, her unborn child's life, to go after revenge. And you are not selling me on this when she says lines like this.
Yeah,
And if you're
exactly.
changing Ellie because you want to tell me a different story, then you're not selling me on this new version of her. Because this Ellie would not have gone to Seattle to kill who knows how many people, and certainly would have not remained in Seattle after learning that her girlfriend is pregnant. So it's just a complete clusterfuck of emotions and like clashing tones. And I don't think they're doing a very good job with this, personally.
No, no, exactly. It's she's more compassionate, more like seeking out a relationship than she was in the games, and she wants that comfort from Dina, and they've had one kiss, I think, before
Yeah.
this scene, and now they're already telling each other they love each other, and they're gonna have a family together. It's speed running like the main relationship of the whole story. It's ridiculous
Yeah.
how little effort they're putting into this, and how they think that just jumping to these conclusions is okay, and thinks people can stay invested. It's silly.
It's such a whiplash because in the previous episode, in episode 3, it seemed like they wanted to kind of like backtrack the relationship a little bit. The barn
Yeah,
dance kiss was 3 months earlier. There's been a lot going on in their lives. They're not really thinking about that anymore. And so I was like, oh, so maybe they're going to develop the relationship a little bit slower throughout instead, no, speed running, like one episode later, we're in love, we're gonna have a baby, I'm gonna be a dad. And it's such a weird progression of events, especially for what's to come. Like, I guess, I'm being nitpicky in some aspects because I know what the structure of the story is supposed to be, and so I'm constantly comparing and contrasting. But I'm not comparing and contrasting because I love the game and I want the show to be exactly the same. I'm comparing and contrasting because, that's how my brain works. But I am open to changes if they make sense. But I don't think they do. I'm sorry. It's so strange.
and like we said, clearly it's the show has seen a massive drop off.
Oh
And
yeah,
so
like you
clearly,
think the ratings have dropped and
yeah.
like
Oh,
how many?
literally since the episode Joel's death episode, the ratings have dropped off quite drastically in
Okay,
viewership. So
that makes sense.
just like we said, I think, and a lot of those HBO watchers are people who don't have previous experience with the games. So yeah, they're dropping off on purely on the levels of what the story is doing in the series. And we said it, and everyone said it. You do the same thing, you're not going to get different results, are you?
Yeah, that's the definition of insanity. The theater is an iconic location from the game where a lot of stuff goes down. So it makes sense that they want to introduce the theater. I'm just like, you're right in saying that it's weird that they just exit the subway station and immediately go into the building, because and that's a result of them kind of like skipping all those exploration and chase moments that in the game makes you go from place to place. So it does feel like, okay, next story beat is in Seattle, so we travel to Seattle in 2 minutes, and now we need to go to the theater, and so next scene we are in the theater. And there are ways in which you can, mask time passing and them kind of like exploring a little bit more, but it does feel a bit, like everything is a little bit too small and convenient.
Yeah, like I think we mentioned, like Game of Thrones, the last couple seasons, when you're in a world like this and you're fast traveling around, it makes everything feel not real. Like you need to feel that time and spend the time with those characters when they're going on these journeys to make the setting feel real, rather than, oh, we're moving to the next set and now we're moving to the next set. And something that also I clocked during that theater scene with Ellie and Dina.
Yeah,
There's a bit after they're doing their plans. I think this may actually be in the next episode.
this is episode 5. Yeah,
And behind them you can see the massive chandelier. All the lights are on in the theater. This beautiful looking chandelier in the distance, and it's like, what are we doing? here? Are we in the apocalypse anymore? Or are you just trying to make like a really nice setting and cinematography? Because honestly, one of those shots, two chandeliers in the background, both lights are on, everything looks beautiful in this theater. It's so ridiculous. It's lost all realism, like I said, for me.
It did feel like okay, so we are transitioning into episode 5 because this is an episode 5 conversation. I agree with you because when she walks into the theater and everything is so nice, it feels like they booked this theater to shoot in for a couple of days.
Yeah.
And they weren't allowed to move too much stuff around. And they put some instruments on the stage and then put like a dust filter on top of the scene to make it look a little bit more disheveled, but it's just pristine. Like there's not even like one seat that fell over in 20 years of apocalypse. So it's it was walled off and no one went to raid it, I guess, and so it's beautiful and great. But
no, I don't believe it. I don't believe it.
It was a bit weird. Yeah.
And I suppose, well, you mentioned the instruments, and this brings me to another bad scene from episode 4. You know, you can have a character playing a musical part or whatever, but doing like almost the whole song of "Take on Me" is ridiculous.
I did like that scene though. I'm sorry, because it's a scene straight from the game.
I know, and in a game when you're spending like, I don't know, the story and the gameplay is probably like 20, 40 plus hours or whatever.
Yeah, it's a down moment.
In a show of how many are there? 7 episodes this season. In a show of 7 episodes, you have to cut that scene down.
And then in episode 5, they have like an almost identical scene when she gets on stage, she finds a guitar, she sits down and she's about to sing, and she goes through the first line of that Pearl Jam song. And I was like, oh my God, is she going to sing again? And then she stops. And it's a very beautiful scene of her kind of like, she can't sing, but she can't sing anymore. But like in my head, I was like, oh, thank God she's not doing the whole song. It's just a little moment and we move on.
Again, terrible scene. In back-to-back episodes, I was the same. I was watching it with my mate, and we were both like, "No, they can't do another full song. Like that would be crazy."
I mean, music is very important to this game and to Ellie's character, so they have to cram some of this stuff in for the ending to make sense and to resonate emotionally. I think they're doing it not in the best way, but I do not. Like, I disagree with you that it was a badly done moment. Maybe they could have cut to a different scene so that we don't have to listen to the whole song. But it was a very sweet moment, and I thought, like, if it was because
but you as a fan of the games and a fan of the story, you know, there's even yourself when you saw her go up on stage, I'm sure the whole time you were thinking, fucking hell, no, like surely not. And, I'm sure most audiences are thinking the same thing as well. And if that's how you're thinking during scenes of
doing something
this
wrong.
HBO series, it's a bad scene no matter what, you know. And I think you could do either of those spread apart from each other in the story, and it works better. But it was, you know, if you're putting these HBO, this one in particular is more of a long film cut into episodes.
They're rushing it as well. It's such a strange problem with pacing.
In the space of 30 minutes, basically, you're having 2 almost identical scenes. It's ridiculous. And like we said, when we feel like there's so much little things missing, like all the journeys and all the trials and tribulations to get to each destination, this stuff feels wasted.
True, but I am gonna say something controversial now. Since we are transitioning into our review of episode 5, I think this episode is quite good. I enjoy it.
It's a lot better. It's a lot better than the last one, for sure.
This episode is well structured. It's well paced. There's a nice ramping up of tension throughout the episode, and I thought it was probably the best of the season so far. It's not saying much. We've been very critical of the season so far, but it was good.
You preferred it to episode 2, yeah?
Yeah. I mean, episode 2, because here now I am kind of like judging the show on its own merits. I'm trying to, at least. I'm saying, okay, so this is the story you want to tell. Let me see how you tell it. In episode 2, I was still holding out hope that they would alter the course of events slightly, change stuff around so that things don't play out exactly the same as they do in the game. And they didn't, so I was disappointed, and that's why I disliked episode 2, even though it was, fairly good episode with great action. I think this one, since now we are in really getting into the flow of what this story is going to be about and introducing all these factions and seeing how they work, I think this was the episode that they needed to nail to sell people on this new version of The Last of Us, because The Last of Us was a very different show up until 2 episodes ago. It was a show
Yes.
about a girl and a guy and an older man and their relationship, and now it's about something else entirely. So you need to
Yeah,
sell
yeah.
them on how this could be cool, actually.
I
Um,
somewhat agree with you, but I think again, it's the bits I'm enjoying are still the more spectacle moments. They're the action sequences. They're when we're dealing with the survival horror elements. These are the bits that are still getting me engaged.
yeah.
It's none of the character moments or none of the dialogue is hitting for me anymore.
Well,
Um,
I have a few exceptions to this, because I
yeah,
agree
sure,
with you that the dialogue with Ellie and Dina is somewhat lacking, you could say. But some of the other stuff is working for me. Like, we have this intro sequence, right? Oh, we by the way, we failed to mention the flashback sequence in episode 4 with Jeffrey Wright's character. That was interesting, and also I'm interested in seeing Jeffrey Wright's performance. I mean, I love him. I think he's a
he's a
great
great
actor,
actor.
and he
Yeah,
brings
yeah.
so much heft and like gravity to the role, and the voice is amazing. So I was really I was really loving the intro. Uh, Puzzled by it, intrigued by it, because Isaac's character in the game is very, very minor. It is played by Jeffrey Wright in the game too, which is
Yes, yeah,
puzzling
yeah.
too.
Do you not
But
get that scene in the games then, where he throws the grenade in the back of the
no,
truck?
this the flashback is new to the show, so they're showing some of the backstory to Isaac that you only
Okay,
find in writings, and like,
yeah.
because exploring around you can find different like letters and files that you can read, and you find out about him a little bit more. But he is very minor. He doesn't have much to do in part 2 the game.
So he
So I'm
doesn't he doesn't kill Josh from Drake and Josh in the games.
Oh right, and that's what it was.
Yeah,
His face
yeah.
was familiar.
It was so
Great.
jarring whenever I see him in something because he's in quite a few little films here and there, and I'm always like, oh, it's Josh, and I could never sort of take that out of his performance. Like it seemed weird, and like the dialogue in that scene was weird. He's like
I
talking about how they bullied this guy and were calling him a jizz boy and stuff. I was like, what is this scene?
I enjoyed that, actually. I thought it was really well done, because you are fleshing out the world in which this story takes place. You are fleshing out the factions that make up the story that you're telling. So you are showing that 11 years, I think it was 2018, 11 years before the events that we are seeing unfold right now, there was this power struggle. There were the Fedra agents, so kind of like the government, let's say. And Isaac, Jeffrey Wright, was part of this faction, and he decides to betray them and give power to the people. And he kind of like allies himself with this woman that is a new character that wasn't in the game, and we'll get to why I find that weird. But um, so I think, they're showing how Fedra is not really like taking into account the humanity of people. They call them voters, and they explain why that's funny. And you can tell from the conversation that they're having that these people that they're talking about are probably early Seraphites, so the scars, the bold, weird people that we saw. And are going to play a role in the story. So I think that was inspired. That was bringing me back to the flashback moments in season 1, uh, which I loved, all of them. That kind of like explain stuff from the show that would not be able to explore otherwise, because we are living the here and now of the story. So I thought that was well done and intriguing. And then when we go back to Isaac and he's interrogating this guy, and the interrogation sequence was really well done, really brutal, classic. Like he introduces a conversation. He's talking about this pan, and you understand that, okay, so when are we going to reveal what's actually going on, and how the Seraphite kind of like holds out his hand at the end, showing that he has no power over him, and he kills him right away. And then you see the guard that he didn't kill at the beginning in the flashback, that he is now kind of like his left hand man, and he listens to everything he says. I thought that was fairly well done, and I'm curious to see what they do next.
I genuinely, I think all the scenes that have featured Jeffrey Wright in it so far have been decent and definitely levels above.
All the two scenes
have definitely been good, and I think maybe I more mean any of the scenes which are fleshing out more of the outer world have been quite good, with the scars and with the WLF. I think a lot of that's been the stronger stuff so far in the last few episodes. Just because of how bad the writing was in episode 4, I thought Jeffrey Wright was just talking. Initially, he was just talking out loud and doing a massive exposition dump and just talking to himself. And this was just basically for us. I was like, I'm hoping the camera's going to pan around and there's going to be somebody else in the room at some point, but I wouldn't put it past
you would expect a good show to do that, but
yes,
you cannot be sure anymore.
I was like, is he looking into the reflection of the pan and talking to himself and just giving an exposition dump to the audience? Honestly, that's where my mind was going at the beginning. But yeah, I thought this was cool.
And you broke the truce. We broke the truce. I'm not doing this chicken and egg game with you. I thought was a really nice way to sum up how these two factions are dealing with each other throughout the years and what Ellie and Dina are coming across.
It's interesting, but it's very generic.
Yeah, I mean, yes.
It's very base level as of yet, anyway, and there's not that many episodes. We haven't delved deep into the characters on either side yet, so we haven't got a bit more of what's going on at the moment. We have a general overlay of how this conflict started, and it's classic. I mean, Apocalypse, you have your crazy cultists and your sort of crazy sort of fascist militarized leaders. It's nothing original, but I am enjoying those elements still.
I think those are well done. And this brings me to the intro sequence, the cold open, I should say, in episode 5, which sees this lady that Jeffrey Wright's character, Isaac, has, created an alliance with at the beginning of episode 4. We see her talking to this other WLF woman, agent, I guess.
Yeah.
And she's describing what has happened to this team. And this is where I think the writing that we've been criticizing so far actually shines, because this sequence was really well done. It was a great intro, great dialogue. It was an evocative description of this scene. It was certainly a budget constraint, maybe, that they didn't want to show. Maybe in a movie they would have shown like this big group of soldiers, military, going into the hospital and then finding the spores and then getting locked inside. But then we get this woman to tell, it was artistically done. This woman tells her a report of what happened, and we can kind of like picture it. And we have hints at what's to come with the spores, and I'm looking forward to it. And they've been nailing the action sequences, so I'm guessing they're gonna do right by us with that stuff.
It seems more of an adult show, and it's more appropriate tonally when our characters are adults in the scenes. This was a much better scene. Like you said, set the tone for the episode, similar to the last episode with the flashback sequence. Keeps you intrigued of what's going on, and obviously later we get a good callback to that opening scene at the end of this episode. And it's rare that this show has done that. It's structured more episodically in this episode.
Yeah.
We have a nice an open and a closer, which is thematically accurate, whereas I feel like a lot of the other episodes, they're just cut and it's not like they haven't been planned as a singular episode. It's just a piece of the following of the story. So yeah, I like that about this one.
I only have two gripes, I guess, question marks for this scene. I am confused by two things. One is why it couldn't be Jeffrey Wright's character to interrogate this woman instead of this random new lady that they've introduced, because that's a new character. So I was really hoping for Isaac to take center stage as the leader, because it was an intriguing character in the game, but it was very minor. It didn't have much of a presence. So now that you have Jeffrey Wright reprising this role, just have him in the show more, explore him more. And instead, okay, we're going to introduce this new lady character who's also a leader of the WLF alongside Jeffrey Wright, so that we can split scenes and have her in other scenes where maybe it would have been better to just have one character, and that was Isaac. So that was
absolutely
weird.
Agree, especially because we've had such small screen time from them, and with so few episodes. I think I totally agree. They should have turned that into one character, because we still don't really know anything about this woman who did the interrogation yet. So
it 100% feels, and again, probably I'm saying this because I know that she's not from the game, but it 100% feels like something that was dictated by a need for Isaac to be somewhere else later on, maybe. So they need to introduce this other character. I don't know. I'm speculating, but it jumped out at me as like, why isn't Isaac interrogating this lady? And also, my other question that I have for you, but I don't know if you have an answer, is I didn't get why. Because we've established that they've been in Seattle for a very long time. So why are they exploring the hospital now? And why do they need the lower levels of the hospitals now? Like when they've been in Seattle for all these years? Like, I didn't get that. Like, all of a sudden...
No, they didn't say. Just a plot convenience, I think, is your answer for that one.
It needs to happen now.
Because we're all at home watching, so it must happen now.
Yeah, that's very good.
But yeah, and then the show goes back to Ellie and Dina, and I feel like
theater.
Yeah, and I feel like again we are dropping back down in quality here with the show. We get them sort of planning where their next moves are. Ellie comes down. She's like, do
you know what triangulate means?
Yeah, she's like, it's like something with fucking triangles. It's like, oh yeah. Imagine if Joel said that.
You're getting better and better every week with this Ellie impression, man. I don't know. Have you been practicing?
I have been practicing a lot. Imagine if Joel said the lines that Ellie was said, and obviously they're completely different characters, but they are trying.
Well, I mean, the show is telling you that they are exactly the same.
Exactly. The show is trying to tell us that now Ellie basically is Joel. She's gruff, she's grizzled, she's hardened by the things she's seen, and she's an elite killer. But she'll act like a snooty teenager in all the dialogue scenes. She's like, I think but triangles or something, and I hate math, and I never liked school. It's like, oh god, could you imagine?
This was more Cartman.
Yeah, it's just so unlikable. And it's giving me vibes of, well, it's just giving me general Disney Plus show vibes when those two are in it and they're leading the adventure. Just because of the weirdness in tone and the whimsical nature of it, but we're still with this supposed underlying, danger everywhere. It's just giving me that kind of vibes, and it's, I'm so knocked out of the story with these two at the moment. I'm really struggling to get back in. And in little moments, it does draw me back when the tension rises and the clickers come back into it. But then I always just think, if it was any other character, you would deserve to be killed in this moment within the story. Not in real life, obviously.
Secretly murdered.
But you know what I mean? They're planning their way to get through the town. And they're like, there's this one building that's, even the guards don't go in there. And so
I wonder why.
Yeah, so obviously it's riddled with infested. That's probably your worst place to go. And they're like, yeah, sweet, we'll take a shortcut through that route. And it's like, you have no idea what's in there. And they even guess. They're like, oh, maybe 3 clickers and a whatever, like a what do they call the normal ones?
Infected, just
Yeah,
runners. Sorry,
they're like 3
runners.
clickers and 2 runners, and they're like, we could deal with that, and no guns. And they make such a big point before going on the mission about, Ellie,
It's
you're
not a big
so
deal.
yeah, Ellie, you're so cool and you're so reckless and you're so violent. Don't get your gun
Don't
out
shoot.
and start shooting. And then immediately they both start blasting their guns
Well, I
when they're
mean,
in there.
I think that was on purpose because they were out of their depth, and the
Oh,
show wanted us to know
but
that they
is
were.
it supposed to be comedic?
Um,
Because it comes across as comedic if you spend like 3 minutes harping on a point of we should never do this, and this is a
yeah.
classic comedy setup. You do that exact thing in the next scene. That's fucking
Well,
comedy.
it doesn't happen quite as you say. Like, they discuss the possibility of having to use guns, and Dina is like, oh, you shouldn't use guns because then they're gonna hear us and they're gonna chase after us. And they establish the idea that if they shoot a gun, then the soldiers will hear them and chase after them, so that when they are shooting at the infected, oh my god, even if they manage to run away from the infected, then they have another problem to deal with because the soldiers are coming. So I thought, like, I understand your criticism, but the dialogue was there for a reason. They could
To
have done it in a better
establish,
way.
yeah, trying to
Yeah.
establish that external danger that's also encroaching on them. But it just, yeah, like I said, it felt almost like a comedic setup to me, that moment. And it's a bit like, oh, maybe the point is, these girls are in way over their head, and clearly they weren't prepared for what's to come. And it's like, well, we know that already. All the audiences knows that they are not prepared for what's to come.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
But
seemed like an odd choice, and then especially, they get into this. It's like a disused. It's like a warehouse or
sorry,
something, isn't it?
before we go into the warehouse, I
Yeah.
just wanted to mention something real quick, because we said we would go back to it when we were reviewing episode 4. So when they go out there, like, they leave the theater to go to the warehouse to kind of get to, I guess their objective was the hospital, right? Yeah, because Nora is there. And they come across these corpses of Seraphites, the scars.
Yeah.
And this is where they finally address the obvious, And Ellie's like, "Oh, what are we doing? Dina, you shouldn't be here." And how this was just something that they put there because they wanted us to be like, okay, so they know that this sounds weird, but we're going with it. And they made up this kind of like backstory about Dina, which I don't mind. I thought it was fairly well acted, interesting story about her kind of like killing this raider when she was 8 years old.
Yeah.
And it makes sense. I guess what I'm trying to say is the show is trying its hardest to justify Dina's presence in the story, even though she's pregnant and she shouldn't be there. And because in the game, Ellie at some point just leaves Dina behind at the theater because she is injured and whatnot. And
Doesn't Dina also have a lot of reservations about the mission as well?
She does, and she goes after Ellie to kind of protect her and keep her in check. And actually, the mission at the first, as I said, is different because they're going after Tommy. They're not just going after revenge, which I thought was such a better, because yes, Ellie is secretly going after revenge, but she's also using the idea of, okay, I need to find and save Tommy before they kill him too.
Yeah, that works
Which
so
kind of
much
like,
better.
it justifies her doing what she's doing, and this doesn't happen in the show, and it's so frustrating because it feels like it's an intentional change for the worse. But, and I'm not defending the game, we do not love the game here, we've established that. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is, I understand it makes sense to have Dina in the story. It was a gameplay decision to have Dina tag along for some of the missions while others were just Ellie. It's pacing. Ellie is gonna be alone for some of the game. Some of the game she's gonna be with Dina, and other missions she's gonna be with other characters. They mix it up, and that's fine. In the show, it's helpful to have a second character there so you can have banter and express concepts and ideas out loud, like the one that we said before. Oh, don't use guns, because if you use guns, the soldiers will hear you and they come and kill us. So, if Ellie was alone there, who's she's not gonna talk into a pan like
She
Isaac
should have brought
and
Seth.
monologue. Yeah, there you go. So
she could have all this witty banter with Seth. It'd be fucking excellent.
So what I'm saying is that I am fine with them doing it this way. Just find another way. Maybe hold on to the reveal of her pregnancy, right? Or make it so they're not sure, so she's not as easily, like, if she doesn't know or if she's unsure, then it makes more sense to have her there, and then it can be a reveal later in the story. No,
Yeah.
we know right away that she's pregnant, and this informs so many of the decisions that they make.
Yeah, exactly. That's the perfect way. And it's only once they are in too deep that they realize the situation, because like I said, it makes them very irresponsible and unlikable as characters for doing what they're doing. And in that moment, this sort of brings me, when Dina tells her little backstory, this brings me to a problem I have with the show at the moment, because we kind of get this secret backstory that's kind of similar to Ellie's. She does a similar thing in season 1 where we get the reveal that, her first kill was this very important one to her, and she killed Riley, and it sort of shaped her character and it's hardened her. And basically Dina has almost the exact same backstory now, and it highlights just how similar these two are as characters when you're just looking at the basis. And that's a major problem, I think, when your two main protagonists are so similar to one another. We had the complete opposite in season 1. Joel and Ellie, the dynamic between them two works, and it's good storytelling to have two characters who are distinctively different from each other, and with different life experiences, different ages, different gender, different etc. Because these things all create little conflicts in conversation. But Ellie and Dina are basically the same to a degree. They're both young teenage girls who have had similar upbringings in the apocalypse, and in terms of their characteristics, they're pretty similar. They're brash, they're confident, they're quite smarmy. They are so similar as characters. There's nothing massively that discerns the two of them from each other at the moment, and I think it's not interesting storytelling to have two characters so similar to one another as your leads in your show.
Yeah, they mostly get along really well as well, which
they agree with everything that they're doing. And like we said, they had that moment where Ellie could show her more harsh side, where she tells Dina, you shouldn't have come here, you're pregnant, you're now a liability to the mission. But no, they just want to play happy families together. There's no conflict. It's silly. Yeah.
Maybe that's to come. I don't know. I want to be fair to the show, because we do see this aspect of Ellie bubble up at the end of the episode, and I thought that was fairly well done. But yeah, I despise the fact that because that's exactly what, as you said, Ellie is consumed by rage, and she doesn't see anything else. So to show her so bubbly, so happy, so okay,
yeah,
that's,
not in this show.
annoying.
She consumed by rage, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's weird, like, because it makes some of the character decisions that need to happen for the story to happen to feel just weird, because this is a different Ellie and she's not as it's strange. But anyway, let's move on. You were talking about the warehouse and the stalkers there, which is actually a scene that I like, so let's go back there.
Our favorite characters, the zombies, finally come back into it, and we go into the warehouse.
And they try to kill them. So
I know, god damn it! One day they'll win. And they go into the warehouse, and you get a nice bit of build up of tension. I thought it was kind of obvious where it was going. As someone who's, I don't know whether this happens in the games, I was like, oh, there's going to be the stalkers here, or at least.
Oh yeah.
I thought,
Stalkers for sure.
yeah,
And I
the
love
stalkers
that they
were going to be in there.
reveal like, oh, it's just one. Oh no, it's three. Oh no, it's six. I thought that was really well done.
Really
But at the
cool,
same,
creepy in the background, but it raised the stakes to the point
so much.
where there was no coming back from it, and I was like, oh shit, like how the fuck are these guys going to get out of here?
Unless someone shows up.
and to be fair, my mate called it as we were watching. As soon as the guns started firing, he was like, "Oh, I bet Jesse's come to save them." And I was like, "No, that would be too like contrived if he just rolls in and saves them in this moment." And lo and behold, we actually
Jesse
see
ex machina.
Jesse takes out like one or two that we see in shot, and then just grabs them and they run and they're safe, even though this warehouse was like full of infested. I don't know how well you can rate the scene before when the end of the scene
when the
is done
resolution
so
is
badly.
so stupid. Yeah,
and
I
it's
agree.
it's the same. Yeah, it's the same with a lot of the action sequences. Did I ever feel that Ellie and Dina were in actual danger? No, and I don't think they're going to be. I don't expect them to be killed off at this point in the show or face anything too tragic. But like I said, when you see all those stalkers and all the infested, I was like, oh man, there's no way they can get out of this situation. And they do really easily, and they don't just get away from all the infested, but Jesse takes them away and they evade capture from all the soldiers outside as well, just by hiding in a
but they
bush.
run into the Seraphites, they like kind of like
These guys basically live right next fucking door to each other. There's two bushes. There's two bushes which separate the Scars and the WLF.
That's where the conflict comes from. It's like, oh, where do I plant this pot of basil? Oh, I can't there. There's a Seraphite.
I'm gonna get those Scars. I'll find them. It's like you don't need to look hard. They're literally just in those trees next door. It's silly.
But
it's again, it's breaking the tension for me, and it's ruining the good stuff the show is doing before. Because again, we go into the woods, and it's kind of a cool, classic creepy scene where our main characters are watching the evil cult do something, and they do something awful, and it's like, oh shit,
straight from the game.
Yeah, and that was quite a cool scene, and you're like, oh, we definitely don't want to be captured by them, but it's yeah, I just think, oh, well, they just evaded an even more dangerous situation earlier with so little problems. I'm sure they'll get out of this pretty easy too. Yeah, it was disappointing. And Jesse rolling up at that time, this happens in lots of movies and lots of TV shows. Saved at the very last minute sort of scenario.
Sure, and it makes sense that he's there, but like he found them because nice triangulation, by the way. Like that's how. Okay, so they're gonna be in this building, and I'm gonna show up in the nick of time just to save you. Like
he just happened to roll into that theater. That they, out of all the buildings in Seattle, you just happen to walk into the theater and see their maps. It's so contrived, and I think when the show's trying to be this gritty, realistic take, you can't have such massive plot contrivances.
On a more of a positive note, if you don't mind,
Jesse's back. I like Jesse.
I like Jesse, and when he shows up, there is a clever bit of cinematography there, because in the marketing material for The Last of Us, right, some of the scenes featuring Jesse had been tweaked so they would feature Joel instead. They wanted to mask the fact that he wasn't going to be in the latter part of the game. So the trailers had scenes where Jesse was swapped.
Is that cool, or Joel. Is that false advertising?
I never understood this criticism. Even the Avengers trailer lied in the marketing. They want to surprise you. They want to show you cool stuff, but they don't want to spoil every scene that happens in the movie, so they make new ones. It's extra work for them just to kind of like hide stuff from you, and I thought that was fine. Like, I was surprised, and when stuff happens in the game, you're like, oh, but I saw Joel in this scene later on, and then you're, oh, okay, it wasn't Joel, it was someone else. So
Oh no,
anyway,
that was a good scene I saw in the trailer that's not actually real.
yeah, I understand partially why people would be upset, but I also understand the desire of the developers to hide some stuff from us. But I'm not going into that now, because that would be its own video, I guess. But they do, I think, want to echo that here with the framing, because Ellie, like us, expects Joel to be there to save her. So it works within the narrative of the show, but also as a meta narrative. I think that was intentional. I don't know. Maybe I'm just reading too much into it, but I found that when you don't see his face and you just see his hand reaching
Yeah,
out
I
to
think
Ellie.
they were somewhat trying to allude to that for sure. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. All right. So they run away and they go into the woods, and it's a really cool scene with the Seraphites. But then, stuff happens that we discussed. They are discovered. Dina is injured just in time, I should say, because Ellie needs to be alone for the next scene to happen. So, Dina is injured
This bit
for plot
happened
convenience.
so fast. This like the last bit of the episode was so rushed. How they separate, and we see Ellie have a little look back to the town, and it's like, oh no, I'm gonna go back in, get to our destination, and within literally the next scene, she's there and Nora's there, and the confrontation happens. I thought it was quite weird how quickly that all.
I mean, they cut out all you sneaking around the hospital and killing dogs and killing people so that you can find Nora.
I was wondering if we were going to see Ellie kill a dog, because there's a scene when she's hiding in the grass and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
someone's like sneaking around with a dog, and I was like, "There's no way they're gonna Bella Ramsey's already fair and unfair. Some of the criticism she's facing, if it's about her performance, then whatever. If it's about her looks, then that's another
Yeah.
thing. But so I think the show is now doing everything. It's like, oh, we can't have her also kill loads of dogs. she'll face so much backlash. So I think that's
I
not going to
mean,
be an element.
no. They purposefully showed her sneaking away from the dog. I'm not gonna hurt you, puppy.
Yeah, she should have like stroked its face in the grass, like like rubbed its nose, and
and
then
the
it
dog
walked
and the
off.
dog immediately loves her and stops
Yeah,
barking so that the guy doesn't find her.
yeah.
Yeah, like she speaks to the animals like Snow White. So I wanted to say this because they go the extra mile to justify Dina's presence in the story in previous episodes, right? Uh, and then as soon as they need Ellie to be alone, because this was a moment where Ellie was alone in the story of the game, the Nora scene, of course, she needs to be alone for what she's about to do. Dina immediately is shot with an arrow, so she has to be removed from the scene. Basically, literally, the help, the best boy from outside of the set comes and takes her away because she's not needed anymore.
Do we ever
And
see in that like commotion? Does Ellie ever see that Jesse takes Dina away? Oh no, that's it.
they split.
Ellie has a line of dialogue. She's like, "I'll lead them away, and you take
Yeah,
care
yeah,
of
yeah.
Dina."
Of course.
But in this moment, Ellie doesn't care about the safety of Dina anymore.
Yeah.
Her
So
revenge matters more now.
yeah, so that's what I wanted to get to, because outside of this little, okay, let's injure Dina so that we can remove her from the scene, which you could call a nitpick based on my knowledge of the story they are telling. I quite like this moment. You kind of get this fork in the road scene, where Ellie could go back to the theater and reunite with Dina and Jesse, but instead decides to chase after revenge, to go to Nora instead of going back to the theater. And I think the show could have done more to kind of highlight this moment and this choice. And as we've repeated multiple times throughout this review, they are not selling us on this version of Ellie, and I personally believe it has a lot to do with the performance that they're not selling us on this situation,
Yeah.
on this dilemma that she's facing. There should be more consequences for her actions. I'm guessing what I'm trying to say, because and I guess we'll get them in the next episodes, but still it feels like, oh, I should go back there. No, I see the hospital in the distance, I'm going there because Nora is there and my revenge is more important than anyone else in my life. And it didn't feel as significant as it should have been.
No, you could have had a shot where Jesse's taking Dina away and Dina's looking at Ellie and she's,
Yeah,
basically looking at her to be like, no, come with us. What are you doing?
perfect.
And Ellie runs in the other direction. Bang, you've
It's a
done it.
turning point. It's a
Yeah.
turning point for Ellie now. So the fact that you don't have the contrast of what could have been if she didn't go in that direction, she has made a decision that will lead her down a certain path, and we're not giving enough weight to it. And I do love your suggestion, and I wish they did that. I wish they could see each other from across the park and be like, oh, we are here, I can go there. Like, I think there's a similar scene. It's like in the Lord of the Rings, when Frodo is supposed to join with Merry and Pippin, but instead he knows that he can't, that he needs to go on this journey alone, and he leaves. And so Merry and Pippin realize this and kind of like get in the way of the orcs. I don't know. Well, this is another tangent, another one of Tommy's tangent. But you know my meaning. They could have done something like that, and it would have been so much more impactful, the decision that she makes.
Yeah, definitely.
But the scene with Nora was actually quite good, I thought. The lighting was great. It made Ellie look kind of, I guess, terrifying. I was not expecting that. She was. I said this before. I think her performance is not the best in certain moments, but her eye acting is really good. Like, she feels empty inside in this scene. I don't know if it's the lighting, or there's something with her eyes that really, she's royally pissed, and it shows. I was afraid for a second there. I don't know. I didn't think it would work. I didn't think I would buy this version of Ellie doing certain things, and I think they did a decent job.
Yeah, this is one of her better performance moments, I think. I'm still not necessarily sold on how sinister she was in this moment necessarily. I think a lot of that for me was down to the setting. Like you said, I thought the build up to get to the position where Nora was, we're seeing all these infected people stuck to the walls.
I love that.
Yeah, they looked great,
that.
and then just all the spores in the air and the red warning lighting and the dark corridors. I think that all that stuff was so well done that it heightened this scene a lot.
Totally. And I guess we should discuss this lore thing, because I am a bit confused, or I should say curious, about the spores. On as we said, the spores were removed from the show for multiple reasons. It didn't make sense for the infection to spread, through the air, because then everyone would be infected and there would be no show. So in the game, you had this stealth section and sections where you had to wear a gas mask to protect yourself from the spores. Of course, Ellie doesn't have to do that because she's immune to the spores. And so they remove this aspect of the infection, and they change it so that it's like this fungi that kind of grows underground, that has roots everywhere, and infected feels you from a mile away because you step on a root. And on one hand, I understand the desire of replicating the oppressive setting of the hospital from the game, and bringing back spores is a great way to kind of up the ante. I guess the place would not be as horrible if it was just regular fungus on wall, but they removed that aspect of the infection for a very specific reason, which is it doesn't make sense. So now it messes with the realism of the show. I don't know. Did you feel it was weird, or is it just me?
I thought it was weird that they're introducing it, because I think it was smart not to do it in the series, because it feels like if the virus is airborne, the whole world is fucked.
Yeah.
And
I guess it's just this one place, and they established it was like one of the first quarantines that they established during the outbreak. So it's just this one place where the fungus grew so much that the spores. But it's weird that the spores are not anywhere else. I don't know. Like it's
I don't
strange.
know. Maybe they'll touch on that again later in the show, but it also kind of cements just how doomed the world is.
Yeah,
If this thing's airborne in certain areas, then humanity is basically done for.
it does feel like the word of The Last of Us and the infection itself and how it works are developing and evolving, which makes sense and makes the world feel more alive and real. Uh,
But
but
yeah,
with the other,
I didn't have a massive problem with it though. I thought it added
yeah, no, it's
it just created
just
a nice little action set piece, and I'm sure maybe it'll happen
absolutely,
in other areas now too.
yeah, because we have more stuff to come with the hospital, but it's just the added context of how they changed the infected biology in season one. It does feel like they wanted to bake the cake and eat it too. Okay, we don't need spores now. We need them now, so let's reintroduce them. Because how do we do the scene where Nora uh, f- you know runs away from Ellie, uh, falls through the elevator shaft and into the basement of the hospital, and either she gets bitten, but that's too played out, we've done it too many times, or it's just the spores in the air who are infecting her, and Ellie is immune. So they just want to replicate that, I guess, iconic scene from the game beat for beat, and that's why they had to reintroduce the idea of spores being dangerous for humans. Anyway, I thought this was a solid episode, great progression. I bought Ellie doing stuff to Nora, which I wasn't necessarily expecting them to nail the scene, and I think they did. I love the look of the hospital, and I can wait to see more of it. And I want to make something very clear, and I think I'm speaking for both of us. Like, I am not saying show bad because different from game. I do not even love the game, and we've discussed, why we dislike the story of the game in a separate video that maybe we'll link somewhere here. But the show can and should change things around, and it's interesting to see what they decide to change. But I am not a fan of how some of these elements are shaping up, and knowing how the story should develop, I am confused and even a bit scared, if you will, because, and I guess this is spoilers for people who haven't played the game, but based on what we've been seeing so far, I think they are actually really doing it. They're doing the thing that I briefly mentioned I hope they wouldn't do in my review of season one and expectations of season two. They are going to split the season exactly where the game splits and changes perspective to Abby. And season three is going to be Abby centric, and this is going to piss people off all over again. And I do not understand why they're doing this. They could have so easily swapped perspective episode by episode between Ellie and Abby's group, and instead they are following Ellie's story. So this leads me to believe that, episode 7, theater, and then cliffhanger, and then a whole season, week by week, to wait to go back to that moment in the theater. I don't know. I am so confused and scared.
We haven't seen Abby once yet since she killed Joel,
No,
have we? That's crazy.
no.
That's crazy.
Which is what happens in the game. So they're following the game so closely now. They're changing a few things around, but this is basically the game.
Especially because it's not like we're so centered on Ellie and Dina. We're cutting away to little vignettes of other stories during these episodes too. So it's such a bizarre choice not to show us what Abby's up to or where
Maybe she's
she's
in the
at.
gym. She's in the gym, man.
Let's hope so. But honestly, that might be a welcome thing to hear for a lot of people who aren't enjoying the show this season. That don't
Oh,
worry,
really?
season 3
Ellie's not gonna be in it.
season 3 has a different main character, so don't worry. But I think by
Yeah.
that point, too many people will have already dropped off, and I think it will not be what it once was. Yeah, I suppose. What would you give? You had to give a score for episode 4 and episode 5.
Episode 4 was just okay. I give it a 6, 5.5 maybe. It was entertaining enough. I loved some of the recreations of moments from the game. The guitar scene, as we mentioned, was really touching. I thought it was really well done. It was basically shot for shot from the game, even though it has some problems that we've discussed. So yeah, 5.5 or 6. Episode 5 I actually really, really, really liked, except a few dialogue moments that we've gone into. So I would give it an 8.
An 8, damn. It's jumping
Yeah.
back up to season 1 scores for you.
Yeah, 7.5, 8. I don't know. It was really good.
Yeah, good. I think for the first time ever, for me, The Last of Us has now moved, especially with episode 4, has now moved into more bad than good territory. And
Yeah.
I'd give that episode a 4, maybe 4 out of 10. I think that it was below average for decent TV. I won't just give it points for looking nice and good spectacle moments anymore when the rest
That's
is
fair.
so down. And I think the last episode we're back up to an average. It's 5 out of 10 for me. I'm not excited to
That's
continue.
average to you. That's interesting. 5 is average. Is it not 6? Like,
Nah.
6 is like enough. 5 is already kind of negative.
See, I'd say 5 is
leaning,
6 is good. It's above
okay.
average.
All right.
But I suppose
this metric is fucked.
The scores can be quite subjective. But yeah, I'm personally not excited to watch the show anymore. I feel like I'm doing it as almost homework now a little bit, which is not how it should be.
Are you not looking forward to me speaking for an hour and a half about how this differs from the game for this reason and that?
These conversations are way better than the show.
Okay, there you go.
But yeah, the show itself has become a little bit taxing for me. I think unless something majorly exciting happens in the next 2 episodes, I really don't think I'm going to be tuning in for the 3rd season.
They need to do the big infected guy in the hospital basement floor.
Oh, is that where that happens?
Yeah, that's where like the I think it's the level below, because they said that there's like B1, B2, and B3, and the scene with Nora happens in B2. So you can imagine B3, what a fucked up place that is.
Oh, cool.
And so that's something to look forward to, in my opinion. I don't know if we're gonna do this in this season, because I think, and I don't remember, but I think it's Abby, the one who goes against the big infected guy in the hospital. So I don't know if Ellie, because it makes more sense for Ellie to go down there, because she's not. She's not.
Unless Abby's going to wear
immune.
a mask, but they haven't really done any of that in the show.
Well, they're definitely going to do that, because people are going to need masks to go there.
Yeah, we shall see. I suppose the one thing I'm intrigued about is I can't wait till Jesse finds out the news about Dina's pregnancy and how that's going to go.
His role in this.
I'm very intrigued to see how he's going to take the news that Bella Ramsey's the father of his child.
I'm sure it's gonna be super adult and nice about it.
Cool, and that I suppose leads us to one of our sort of main topic today. Even though we went long time talking about those, our main topic today is based on video game adaptations in films and TV. And we're gonna do a similar thing that we did a couple of weeks ago for our vampire episode, and we'll give our top 3 video game to series or TV or film adaptations, and we'll do some honourable mentions, maybe some dishonourable mentions, and we'll also do a little, some games that we would love to see get adapted and we think could do really well. Tommy, do you want to start us off?
I have a list here, because I had to go and look up. Because you sometimes you forget. We are old men now, and sometimes you forget the little gems and horrible things that movies have done to our favorite video games. But There's a few that I wanted to mention just because they're interesting. We're not going to talk about the old Super Mario Bros. Movie, I guess. That's no one's favorite. But, that's an interesting relic from a certain era of
I've never seen it.
adaptation. And I've never seen it either, but like the few clips that I've seen of that movie, just uh, I do not want to, but also I'm happy that it exists. If that makes sense. Another one that is weird, very weird, is the Final Fantasy movie, The Spirit Within. Have you ever seen that?
Never seen it. Didn't even know there was one.
I mean, it's a CGI movie, but it's like a CGI movie from the early 2000s. It's probably even just 1999 or something like that. So you can imagine how badly the CGI has, aged in the past few years. And it's such a weird movie because I remember kind of like recording it on my TV when it was like on some weird channel. I don't even know how I knew about it, and watching it and being so puzzled because it had nothing to do with Final Fantasy. I know that Final Fantasy has different stories and different words for each entry in the franchise, but like this one was like this futuristic, basically Earth in the future, and there was this race of aliens who were like sucking emotions and killing people, and like the Earth was like this wasteland, and these ladies trying to bring back life to it. And the story was so convoluted and confusing, but as a like 13-year-old watching this on his laptop, it was a very intriguing experience. It was just like weird looking characters trying to be very photorealistic in a time where the technology was not there yet.
And I think that perfectly sort of it goes on to a lot of the relationships I have with video game adaptations too.
Yeah,
A lot of my favorites or the ones I like come from personal nostalgia rather than acknowledging that the content or the story is actually good, because a lot of the time I enjoy these things, and like some of these ones I'm going to mention, but I accept that they're terrible movies or not very good, but they have this nostalgic value to them that's very enjoyable.
absolutely. And I think that's a completely valid reason to like something. I like Space Jam and I like the first Pokemon movie, but I understand that they are awful for anyone who hasn't grown up with them. And it's the same reason why I spent 5 minutes earlier defending the guitar scene in The Last of Us when you rightfully said it brought the pacing of the episode to a halt. It wasn't interesting. It was way too long. But I was just happy that they recreated a moment from the game that I liked. So it makes sense. People are losing their minds. I know it's a meme now, but like with the Minecraft movie and all those moments that I have no idea or context for, I'm already too old for that. But I understand that there are kids there who like see the what's his face, but then there's
What
like
is
the
his name?
chicken jockey
Steve.
scene.
Steve, that's it.
Steve.
Steve.
And then you got the chicken jockey scene and people are losing their minds. And don't let me take that away from you. You have fun, you throw popcorn at the screen, you should pick it up then afterwards. But
Like the early days of the kind of Marvel movies in their heyday, and you'd see a cameo from somebody, and somebody in the cinema like 2 rows away from you would be like, "Oh,
oh my god,
that's that guy from that movie, and this season of that movie." It's and I always like
that's Samuel L. Jackson.
He's Nick Fury. Yeah,
That Samuel L. Jackson in the comics is drawn after. It looks exactly like Samuel L. Jackson in the fucking show. Oh my god!
No, I appreciate that level of fandom sometimes. When it's appropriate for these kind of franchise movies or video game adaptations, and I like all that pantomime that comes with it sometimes.
I wanted to mention that what you just described is the reason why I enjoyed 2/3 of Detective Pikachu. I don't know if you've seen that.
I haven't.
But like Detective Pikachu is a very weird little movie where Ryan Reynolds voices a Pikachu who is investigating a case with Justice. What's his face? He was in the Dungeons and Dragons movie. It was Justice Smith. That's his name. It's
Yeah.
like he plays the nerd in a bunch of stuff, and he plays the nerd here. And they go around the Pokemon world, and there's like there's underground battles with like Charizards and Gyarados, and they walk around, and there's like fucking PGs on flying around, and it's just being in that world and seeing these realistic renders of the Pokemon, the original mostly Pokemon. It was just a fun experience. I thought the sequences were really well made. The movie loses completely. It completely loses the plot in the third act because Bill Nighy, who plays this, I'm spoiling this because you're never gonna see it, and there's nothing to spoil. But like Bill Nighy plays this rich guy who develops new technology, and he's giving these interviews where he's like, "Oh, I want to save the world. I want to do this and I want to do that," and then he implants his mind into a clone of Mew. So Mewtwo, of course. So Mewtwo, that's the reason why Mewtwo can speak, because he has the mind of a person inside of him. And
Bill Nye plays Mewtwo.
Yeah.
In Detective Pikachu. This sounds
And that's
fucking mental.
and that's why it's amazing, and yeah, the ending is so strange. Like they fight in the city, and there's all these floating balloons of Pokemon around, and then you realize, oh, actually the reason why this Pikachu can talk is because he went through the same procedure as Bill Nye, but he didn't know, he forgot about it. So like, and Ryan Reynolds is revealed to be the real person that Pikachu's conscience was transferred into. So it's a lot,
So
and that I think
the origin story of Pikachu is that he was just Ryan Reynolds.
yeah, like every
Wow.
good story should go. So yeah, but there was a fun little movie as well, and I thought I would mention it because it's a recent example of a fun genre thing based on movie, like even the Sonic movies. I don't know if you've ever seen any of the Sonic movies.
I've only seen little clips from them, and people say they're very good and they're very sort of faithful to the lore and the source material or whatever. And they look, they look like decent little family action films. Not interested me enough to go out and watch them. And
Yeah, that's
even though
fair.
I like Sonic back in the day, it was like I think Sonic was the very first game I ever played.
Oh really?
Yes, on the Sega Mega Drive, but I don't have an affinity with it, like story wise at all. But
I
yeah,
mean, there
those.
is no story, honestly.
But
So,
the films look interesting for what they are, and
I
I've heard they're decent.
I am not even a Sonic fan, man. I played a couple of the games, but I was never like, it was never a franchise I really delved deep into. But these are fun little movies. They're good for kids. They're entertaining enough for adults too, or kids at heart, I should say. And they are all basically the same. Like all three movies are the same. There's Sonic, and one new character joins the team, and they have to defeat someone. And this someone is usually Jim Carrey, and Jim Carrey is having a blast playing this cartoon character of a villain, Dr. Robotnik. And in the third
I
one,
always
he
thought his name
plays
was
both.
Doctor Eggman.
Oh yeah, because he has like, I think because he's bald, so it's like a word that they use to kind of like insult him, like, oh,
Oh, okay.
Eggman.
Yeah.
And yeah, so Jim Carrey is fun. He's just doing Sonic movies at this point, which I'm fine with. In the third one, he plays both himself and his own grandfather. So they are having fun with him too. And I think they nailed the character of Sonic. And I don't know, they go on these weird tangents, like me when we speak about anything. That like there's always a dance off of some kind in the movie. Like in the first movie, they have a dance off with this Russian guy in Siberia. In the second one, I cannot remember. In the third one is Dr. Robotnik. Well, Jim Carrey and his granddad, who have a dance dance off together. So there's weird B plots with Sonic's like human friends that no one cares about, but they keep doing them. I guess because budget reason, they can't do big fights with Sonic all the time, so they have to scale it back with James Marsden and other people.
You always have to have
Uh,
in films like that your uninteresting human characters.
Yeah, and like in the second one, it's like an insane B plot where I think it's the sister-in-law of James Marsden. She has to get married in this huge resort in some island, and that was literally just like a tax write-off of this. Literally, they shot half the movie there because they paid them to, and it was just basically an advertisement for these resorts and how beautiful these beaches are, and and then
Isn't
Sonic ends up
isn't
there.
cinema just magical?
Yeah, it's so great. It's just art. That's what I'm saying. Sonic is art. But they have a lot of personality, these movies, for what they are. And I want to give a brief shout out to the only good thing to ever come out of the internet, which is the Sonic redesign.
Yes, I remember all of this, and I genuinely I think so many people have hold Sonic who haven't even seen it in such goodwill because of that thing that they
Yeah,
did, and I think all power to them, because so many creators and companies like this have way too much of an ego when it comes to things,
yeah.
criticisms of their product, and at the end of the day it worked in Sonic's favor. They've now had 3 movies and they've all done pretty damn well, so listen to the fans. It works
Yeah, they
sometimes.
they basically bullied Paramount into changing the look
Yeah.
of the character, and they did, and it worked, and it was amazing. So
But
yeah,
God, it looked terrible
good
before.
stuff.
It looked like a little
Yeah,
crack. Looked like a little crackhead.
it did, and it was a crackhead in that movie. They did a Disney Plus movie with Chip and Dale. Um, it was kind of like a Roger Rabbit kind of
Right.
like style movie where like different cartoon characters are living in the real world, and there's a few scenes with ugly Sonic. It's literally called Ugly Sonic, and it's the design from the previous version of the character, and that was fucking hysterical when I saw it. But yeah, they reference it in so that that means it's funny. Anyway,
Well, so I've got a few
uh,
honourable mentions that I'll go through as well, and
God.
some dishonourable ones too. When I was wrapping my head round all the best video game adaptations I've seen,
There's
just how few good ones there are. It's literally like 5 or 6, and
and the best ones are all recent.
yeah,
If you take away the nostalgia element, which
yeah, for
we'll
sure.
come
And
to.
it's crazy how little success films have had translating video game series, because there's so many video game series are just movies in themselves that could just be easily translated over, but somebody has not quite tapped this market yet somehow. um
Yeah.
and
Well, they are going to after Minecraft.
oh my
I'm
god, yeah,
sure
yeah,
we'll see every single franchise
it does feel like
turned
we
into a
are
movie.
about to enter the era of video game adaptations being the big thing that Hollywood does. So one that I had quite high hopes for and was intrigued as I was watching it was the Fallout series on Amazon.
Oh yeah,
A good adaptation in terms of visuals, all the superficial elements. I think it
the
looks,
word.
yeah, the world looks great. The production design's awesome. The characters are cool. Walton Goggins is really good as the ghoul in it.
Yeah, he is great.
He's really good, but the show goes nowhere story wise. I didn't like the tone of it in the end. So many plot holes all over the place. Didn't yeah. The characters'
Yeah,
motivations don't really make sense. And so I thought this was so disappointing, honestly, Fallout. I thought this was going to be really, really good and quite this had potential to be the best video game adaptation, but
a lot of people really, really loved it, and I think there's a lot of room for improvement in season 2, which I think just wrapped production,
it
so
did,
we'll see
yeah.
it soon. But I enjoyed it enough the experience of watching it week by week was entertaining. As you said, Walton Goggins, great as this cowboy ghoul, great scenes with him. I liked Ella Purnell. I hated it. I hated Maximus.
One of the
I
worst
thought that was
characters written in anything.
is the worst. I mean, he made me chuckle a couple of times, and that's it. Like when he wanted to have sex with her, and he was like in that colony underground.
That was the stupidest scene. He's like,
yeah, it was so stupid.
What does my penis do?
It explodes.
Yeah, what
do you want me to make my penis explode?
It's like sometimes he was a baby, like literally had the mind of a baby, and then other times he's like this hardened like soldier. It's similar with a lot of stuff like that was done with Last of Us, just the tonally so inconsistent.
The whole storyline with him was, I think, the worst aspect of the show because, the ghoul was fun, Ella was fun.
They show the flashback of Maximus as a kid coming out of a fridge like 10 times. It's like, oh yeah, we get it. We get it. It's so cool. He survived the nuclear explosion in a fridge, just like Indiana Jones.
Yeah. Looking back, I agree. It was not that special. But I am engaged enough in the world that I'll keep watching, hoping that the next season is better from a story perspective.
Yeah, there's so much potential, and I think the thing, all the Walton Goggins scenes were keeping me tuned in, and also I started to really enjoy the little mystery that was happening with the main character's little brother. Back at the vault.
In the main vault.
And like he was discovering what was happening in the vault next door, and then when we reveal, we finally get, it's a classic, what do you call that? It's mystery box storytelling. And he opens the door in the last episode, and we finally get a big reveal of the mystery we've been leading up to, the whole thing, and it's just a silly comedic moment of this silly robot who's controlling the next vault, and it's like such a disappointment that was, considering how if you played any of the Fallout games, there's so many interesting lore around the vaults and so many interesting little stories that happen inside the vaults. For that to be the big end of season 1, really disappointing.
Was that just it? I think the funny little robot had a few revelations of its own, like they explained why the vault, how it works.
They basically said they're like a management vault, and they're being bred to be managers, which I still think was disappointing, to be honest.
I mean, the reason the fact that I do not remember says it all about the big reveal.
Yeah, exactly. But definitely potential with the show, and hopefully they've got some new creative voices in there for season 2, and the story and characters can match how the show looks and how well it gets the game's vibe across, because I think it could become one of the better ones if it does nail some of those things down.
Have you seen the Borderlands movie?
Oh my god, no. that looked like, the trailer for that looked like the worst thing ever. I've never really played the Borderlands games either, so I'm
neither.
Not invested.
And I went to see it. A friend of mine was like, "Can you come with me? I want to watch this."
It's your fucking money that's keeping these films being made, is it? I think we've come to realize.
Yeah. It's just Tommy and this other guy. I went to see it, and it's the worst thing. It's literally the worst thing. It's like the most bare, like formulaic. Let's try to do Guardians of the Galaxy, but with none of the charm.
That's exactly
none of the
what
witty dialogue, none of the interesting world building. It just makes no sense from start to finish.
And it's got fucking
everyone is
Kate Blanchett and Kevin Hart, and
everyone is miscast. It's so badly put together. Like I will give you like one example, because it's the first scene of the movie, and already I was like, what are you even doing? So Kevin Hart plays this rough, around the edges, kind of like soldier guy, and apparently is based on a character from the game, and
terrible.
It has nothing.
Already on the surface, terrible casting for Kevin Hart.
Terrible casting based on how the character from the game looks and behaves, because Kevin Hart always plays a certain specific type of character, and it's fine when he plays that specific type of character, but it doesn't have range, so you can't have him be like a badass dude who shoots everyone. But they want to make a gag when because at the beginning I think he's rescuing this girl, right? And he comes into this room and he rescues her. He kills some guys, and then they run away. But like, she doesn't know him, and she looks at him and is like, "Oh, is that all? Like, are you all there?" Like, making fun of his height. But Kevin Hart is shot from chest up, like, so there's no reference of how tall he is in the scene where they're making fun of his height.
Oh my god.
Like, we are supposed to know that Kevin Hart is short because we know Kevin Hart in real life is short, but the film, sorry, it hasn't shown us that it's short yet. And the framing of the scene does not match with the joke that you're trying to tell. So like, that tells you everything you need to know.
Yeah.
Like, not even the funny stuff manages to be funny because it's framed or told in a very bad way. It's just nothing movie that I forgot, except these few moments that irritated me. I forgot it as soon as I left the theater.
And they spent a hell of a lot of money on it as well. I know it had a massive budget. This
it's
Borderlands
offensive.
film. It's
offensive that people spend money like that. Just buy drugs instead. That's
You bought the goddamn cinema ticket
instead of buying drugs. Yeah. Oh, man.
Yeah, crazy. I had no interest in watching it. I knew it was going to be a fucking shocker, that one. This is a classic theme as well. I bet the person who made the Borderlands film has never once played the game. I'm just guessing off the top of my head because this tends to be how these things go. I know the person.
But you don't have to be a fan to be a competent director of something.
Not at all. But I think it's good to have an understanding of the source material, because the main bulk of the people who are going to go are probably going to be fans of the thing already. And I think it's a problem if you're not. And I bet Minecraft isn't a great movie, but it gets those little moments and those references right clearly because people are fucking going crazy for it in the cinema.
They're trying to replicate a TikTok meme, so I don't know how much of that excitement is genuine, but
yeah. You know what I mean.
Some of it is,
but I mean,
some of it
was
is
still doing very good at the box office too. So people are going to see it. And I've another one. A bit of I suppose it's a dishonorable mention, this one. Did you watch?
I mean, most of them are, I guess.
Did you watch Secret Level on Amazon Prime?
I did. I watched all of it.
I watched all of it too. It was so disappointing.
I mean, I save maybe a couple shorts, but generally I just find them so just forgettable. I don't know
so
why.
Forgettable. They're mostly just like little teaser trailers, even though some of them are 15, 20 minutes long. They just feel
tech demos.
Yeah, tech demos. And there's a couple good ones. The Warhammer one was pretty cool.
That one was that made me want to play the games, and I've never played any of the Warhammer games.
Yeah, it got me like, I'm interested in the Warhammer lore. Apparently the Warhammer lore is really deep and rich.
The Pac-Man one was kind of cool too.
I don't think I actually watched the Pac-Man one. It was like set in future. It was like futuristic, wasn't it, or something?
Yeah, like you don't really you don't really get that it's Pac-Man. Or maybe you do because the title spoils it. But like, you would never guess it's Pac-Man until this little yellow ball shows up. And it's kind of like it works like a little companion robot for this alien character who needs to get out of this facility, and then you realize what the purpose of this is and how it works, and it's kind of fun, and it's basically teasing this game that either has just come out recently or is gonna come out. There is a reinvention of Pac-Man in a dark, kind of like Metroidvania roguelike kind of scenario. So yeah, it's just an advertisement.
That's what the world
like
needs.
most things.
Subversive Pac-Man. that's
they're subverting everything.
That's what we're missing. I'm just going through the episode list here, and I'm sure some of this is down to licensing fees that Amazon, they couldn't get all the best games, to make episodes about, but it also touches on what we're talking about, misleading trailers. The very last episode of Secret Level is basically like a trailer for PlayStation games, and it just shows you all these little different characters, like major characters like Kratos and a few others, Nathan Drake, and we see that, and that one literally is just a teaser trailer for PlayStation iconic characters, and
it's in the trailer,
and we see that in the main trailer. So everyone thought, oh, we're going to get a really sick little God of War episode in this, but that never comes. Instead, we get Honor of Kings, that game everybody loves.
Is that the one with Schwarzenegger in it?
No, this is the one where they're playing chess against each other.
Oh, okay, sorry.
And
because that one I really liked.
Oh, I'm with you. That one, we'll get to that. But Honor of Kings, and I'm going through the list of the games, and none of these games are big, well-known, loved games with great worlds. We have Honor of Kings, which actually had one of the cooler short stories. It was like a guy playing chess against some artificial intelligence, and he had to beat it. It was interesting, had some good visuals. And then we have Concord, the failed Amazon game, which never...
they made a short for a game that nobody played.
Which I think lasted
so
like a week.
Embarrassing.
Yeah, what are they doing?
They had like 1,000 concurrent players. Like, that's the whole time high. Like, it was so bad or something.
And like, maybe this has been something in development for a long time, these animated shorts.
Of course,
so they had that already, and they're like, fuck it, let's just keep beating that Concord dead horse. And then we get Spelunky, Exodus, Mega Man, The Outer Worlds, Armored Core, Crossfire, Pac-Man. We obviously get
Have I seen all of these?
Warhammer.
Oh my god, I thought I did.
There was 2 parts to the series. The second part was terrible. Not.
Maybe I haven't seen the second part then.
We get Unreal Tournament. We get New World, and we get Sifu. And we get Dungeons.
Sifu one was fine.
The Sifu one was good. It was so short. The Sifu one. I think it was like 7 minutes or something. And it just like, I don't know why they chose these games in particular to make stories of. Like, when this show was announced, I was like, this could be something truly amazing. An anthology series, very similar to Love, Death, Robots, but just based on cool video game worlds. It really did not hit. Like we said, I think the best one was either the Warhammer 40k, Sifu, or I think it was New World, the Once and Future King, which is a game I've never heard of, but that was the one with Schwarzenegger.
Me neither.
Schwarzenegger washing up on a beach, and this story was great. Like, it was so well made.
That was super fun. With him, kind of like, and this servant guy, and he's so enamored with himself, and he thinks he's gonna be the king of this new island, but no one cares. And he has this little growth as well. Like, I don't know, it felt like that was the most well realized story
100%
that they had.
It was
even though I do not care for the game at all.
No, I don't think anybody knows this game. I think it might be even I know one of them is based off just like a mobile game that's just like a pure casino, like money casino type thing. But yeah, this was the best, like you said, in terms of an actual realized story. It has an arc, it's got a beginning, middle, and end, and it's not just a teaser trailer for the vibe of the game like a lot of them are. I feel like there was a lot of wasted potential here, and I think when Love, Death, and Robots is deep into season 4 or season 5 maybe now, and they're very hit and miss, I'd say. But when they hit in the past, they have been epic. Like, some of the little animated shorts they've made have been fantastic, really great stuff, and I just was hoping we would get something on that level, but unfortunately we didn't.
We'll get it in the future. Better luck next time.
My sort of final honourable mention is Doom. Have you ever seen Doom?
Oh, I've never seen Doom. Would you recommend it?
I actually would. It's a really fun movie. It's campy, it's silly, it's classic, like early 2000, late 90s action movie. And there's a couple actually genuinely good sequence in it with like some good practical effects. It basically, I mean, it turns Doom into more like a Resident Evil type scenario. And they're not necessarily
Dwayne
like,
Johnson before it was Dwayne Johnson.
oh yeah, and Carl Urban's in it, and Rosamund Pike, all-star
Rosamund Pike.
cast.
I'm in. Oh my god, this looks amazing. Okay,
And
I'm
fucking
sold.
The Rock. So The Rock actually plays, very rarely plays a bad guy. He's a real bad guy in this film, which was quite nice to see. Because he
Nice.
plays it quite well. And there is one really good sequence in it where um, it's similar in the games. You take sort of like an adrenaline shot, and it kind of like laser focuses you and slows down time. But our main Carl Urban does it in the movie, and the camera moves into first person perspective, and it's like turns into like a video game for maybe like a
Oh yeah,
5 minute
yeah.
action sequence, and that was really
That
cool.
classic moment that they had in every early 2000 game
yeah.
movie where they try to mimic for a second the style of the game itself, and then
Yeah,
move
and
back to.
it was cool. It was cool. There's some genuinely
It does look cool, honestly. It's one of those
good
movies that
stuff.
escaped me, but I guess it's like kind of like an aliens inspired schlock sci-fi horror thing.
Totally,
So,
you bang on the money there. You know exactly what this is, and
and I'm gonna
you'll
love
enjoy
it. I'm gonna eat it up.
There's
So I'm
just
gonna do
like,
it.
and also watching it back when you're older, retrospectively, there's some scenes in it which are supposed to be serious that are fucking hilarious. Like it's so ridiculous and over the top that it keeps the entertainment value very high on this one. And it's a film I've gone back and I've rewatched many times, and always found enjoyment in watching Doom. So maybe before we go on to our top three, do you want to
Uh-huh.
give us one or two or a few video games that you would love to see adapted, or you think that could do a really good adaptation on film or TV?
So I have two. One is a movie that I think would really work, and one is a movie that they've announced that I'm really worried about.
Okay,
Um,
interesting.
so the first one is a game that I think would make for a fantastic movie. Is Control. Have you ever played Control?
Never played it, but I know the premise. I know the story. I always did want to play it, but it just escaped me.
I think you would fucking love Control, man.
Yeah.
And Control 2 is coming out, I think, next year. So perfect time to go back and
Okay.
play this.
Yeah, I'll definitely do that.
So it's an action adventure game developed by Remedy Entertainment, the makers of Max Payne, Alan Wake, Quantum Break. They are great. They are so much like they have a great vibe. Their games, they're interconnected, and the story of Control uh, revolves around this amazing concept of the Federal Bureau of Control, FBC, and which is like a secret US government agency that is tasked with containing and studying paranormal phenomena, stuff that violates the laws of reality and the laws of physics. So basically you go into this building at the beginning of the game. You are this lady called Jessie, and you're looking for your brother, and your brother went missing when you were a girl, and you investigated for years and years and years, and you think that the disappearance of your brother is connected to this FBC, this bureau, and these objects of power that they collect and study within this facility in New York. So you enter the facility, and you basically, for reasons that I won't go into, you become the new director of the bureau, and you have to explore it, and all every area, because this, like, it's all paranormal, so all the bureau's sections are all different from each other, and some are more distorted than others, and there's places where they keep these objects of powers, which are objects where there's like paranormal energy coming out. So maybe it's even like very silly stuff. Like it's at some point there's like a secondary thing that you can do, where there's this guy basically who is charged to keep watch over this rubber duck. And this rubber duck, basically, if you stop looking at it, it's gonna do horrible things to you. And so he has to stay vigilant and look at this rubber duck until someone comes there and replaces him. But since when you get to the bureau, there's this like the emergency, no one is coming, so he's like losing control and he can't fucking look at this rubber duck anymore, and you have to save him. And it's like, and there's so many weird things. And I think a movie or a TV show just like set in this environment and kind of like you have to investigate paranormal stuff and develop these abilities and defeat, because then there's these enemies who are like humans who have been infected with this thing known as the hiss, and they are corrupted, and they can bend the laws of physics as well, so they like move super fast or they fly, and you have to shoot them with this gun who also has powers. So like it's a really fun and engaging world that they've built, and it's referenced in other games from Remedy too. I think Alan Wake, which I haven't played yet, the second one, also is connected to the Control world.
Yeah, I've heard that.
It's just phenomenal in my opinion. The combat, maybe it's not the best, but like the world building and the story and just the vibe of the place is really, really interesting. So yeah, I think it would make for a great movie. Okay, so this is gonna be brief, but I know they're making a Zelda movie.
Okay.
They've announced a Zelda movie, and I am a pretty big fan of Zelda. I haven't played too many of them, but like I've played enough, and I love Zelda, and I think it's a great world and story, classic hero adventure in a fantasy world, and it's so well done and so whimsical and fun. And they're doing it live action, and to me that makes no fucking sense. I am like, why would you, after the success of the Mario movie, why would you go live action with Zelda? It should be animated. And not only that, I mean, in a perfect world, where I am in charge of everything, um, it would be a modern Miyazaki inspired kind of like 2D 3D hybrid animation, kind of like Spider-Verse but with a Studio Ghibli coat of paint. And that would be so amazing. Like it would be like, I think everyone would want to watch that. Even people who are not familiar with Zelda would want to watch that. But no, they're gonna fucking do a live action with like fucking Tom Holland with like pointy ears.
And there you go. You've done it. Zendaya and Zendaya.
Zendaya Zelda, or they're gonna swap them, because you can't have a princess being saved, so it's gonna be fucking Anya Taylor-Joy as Link, and Zelda is gonna be played by The Rock.
Oh, you've done it for them. You've cast it for them. Damn it.
It's like Nintendo is watching this video. It's like, write that down.
An animated adaptation is the way to go, but film industry is always worried about pumping big budget into animated films for not specifically aimed at kids, because it's a smaller niche market. And clearly they were too scared to do Minecraft all animated, so they had real people in the Minecraft world, so you could still sell it as a live action movie to a degree. Yeah, they're just always too scared to do that, and I think they don't tend to perform excellently at the box office, animated films for more mature audiences.
I mean, but this would be an animated movie for everyone, because Zelda is very, for all ages.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think they should absolutely. That's the direction they should do it in for sure. And there's enough examples of where they Into the Spider-Verse was a great success. It can be done if it's good, and people will.
Yeah, but it made a fraction of No Way Home. So I guess
did the first Spider-Verse not do really well?
No, it did very well for an animated movie,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
it
yeah.
didn't make $1 billion.
No,
So
it's
I guess
always
they're thinking,
different.
we'll see. I am really worried that they're gonna botch it. But
Do you know who's doing it?
I think it's Wes Ball, who's attached right now, and I kind of like him because he did the most recent Planet of the Apes movie, not the Matt Reeves trilogy. Well, even though he directed the second and third, the new one that came out last year was directed by this Wes Bull guy, and before that he did, and I like these movies. I did the Maze Runner series. Um, they're based on novels like classic young adult novels, like one of those post Hunger Games kind of like trilogies of movies. They have like Dylan O'Brien in them. I don't know if you've ever seen any of those.
No, I don't know those ones.
But yeah, he like they're decent little action flicks, but like Dylan O'Brien is really good in them, and I think he has a very good sense of pacing and rhythm. It infuses his movies with a lot of, but I don't know if it's the right pick for a Zelda film. I think a Zelda film should feel grand and kind of like, I don't know. It's very hard to picture a CGI live action hybrid kind of like Zelda thing. Maybe they'll nail it. I don't know.
Yeah,
We'll see.
we shall see. um,
I will be first in line, at the box office, just paying my ticket like the useless drone I am.
Be like, how much money? 200 £200. Like, all right,
I
fuck
guess
it.
it's really good then. Oh man.
Yeah, I mean, something that I would like to see adapted, and it's been in and out of talks for years and years about whether they're going to do it, is Gears of War.
Oh,
Have you ever?
I think they've announced a Gears of War movie 1,000 different times.
Yeah, like
throughout
every
the
couple
years.
years, it's like, oh, Dave Bautista's now going to be playing in Gears of War or something like that.
It sounds perfect.
Have you ever
I've
seen?
never played any of the Gears of War because I've never had an Xbox, and so that franchise escapes me.
Yeah,
But
in its earlier days, like Gears of War 1, 2, 3, epic, so good. Like as a game, as a story, yeah.
That trailer with the Mad World soundtrack, sorry, it's just, this is everything that I'm gonna be able to say about this. But like that trailer where
Amazing.
they're running away from aliens and it's the Mad World song. I think I saw that trailer like 100 times, and it was so good that I was kind of almost gonna beg my parents to buy me an Xbox, even though I knew they would never do that because I already had a PlayStation. So they were not the kind of parents that they would do that. But like,
and you're like, but mum, look at this trailer.
It looked fucking amazing.
Hey,
so, yeah.
well, I can't believe she watched that trailer and she didn't buy a new fucking console for you.
I mean, what are your values, Mom?
Because yeah, that trailer was amazing. It was like the big announcement for next gen on the 360. Was that Gears of War 1 trailer, and it was epic. And the game lived up to that trailer for sure. Alien invasion, and we're fighting off, and all hope seems lost as they call them locusts. These like alien enemies who are coming to take over the world. And we have lots of cool,
kind of like Starship Troopers, like bug aliens kind of thing. Right?
Yeah, but then there's the main crux of the enemies are humanoid. They look more like orcs.
Oh, interesting.
To be honest, yeah. And then they have so many cool weapons they bring in. I remember just this first sequence in the first game is when you encounter a berserker for the first time, which is this massive monster who's got like no eyes, and he just runs into the direction of when he hears the sound. And you get given this weapon called the Hammer of Dawn, which is basically like a laser it's basically just a gun which aims a laser at something, and then the satellite above you drops down this massive bomb. And it was one of the coolest moments in a game when you finally take out this monster with this Hammer of Dawn weapon. Really cool. And yeah, I mean, it's all laid out there for you. You've got, I think there's like 5 or 6 games now, and they're all very story heavy. So you could quite easily adapt.
And that's why they're gonna fuck it up.
Yeah, exactly, because they want to do their own thing. But they could quite easily adapt 1 or 2 into a great...
We don't want to be shackled to the source material, we want to do our own thing. Then make your own fucking Gears of War.
Yeah. Try and make something as good as Gears of War then, you fuck. But this, I think the problems here is budgetary. To make a Gears of War show good and faithful, you would need a hell of a lot of money.
This brings me to another one that I wanted to briefly mention, which is they wanted to do a Horizon TV show, Horizon Zero Dawn. The PlayStation game.
How would they do
dinosaurs.
the massive dinosaur things?
Yeah,
with that budget.
And apparently that TV show has been cancelled. But they're going to do a movie instead, which I think it's way more manageable and makes much more sense, even though the story of Horizon is so complicated that I don't know how they're going to fucking fit it in one movie. It's interesting to see how so many of these franchises are going to TV instead of cinema. It's part of generally, people are watching more TV now than movies. They're not going out to the cinema as much, and TV allows for long-form storytelling, which most games are.
Yeah, and
so
also,
it makes more sense.
Yeah, and also streaming TV shows allows for shows or companies to put out absolute fucking trash and say, oh, loads of people watched it. Trust us, we're moving on to the next one. And you never get a gauge of actually how successful these shows are on streaming sometimes.
But to do convincing stuff like the Horizon world or the Gears of War world or the God of War world in TV show format is really hard.
Yeah, and I think, like we said, God of War, probably even Gears of War as well, they would actually probably be more appropriate for an animated series or an animated movie, just because it's going to be so hard to create that level of realism.
But then you kind of lose that appeal of seeing the character brought to life for real, right? Like if my Kratos is not an actor, then what's the point? I'm just gonna watch the cutscenes from the game that look amazing.
That's true.
Just get the guy, that giant dude who plays Reacher. What's his name?
What, him to be Kratos?
I don't know. No, maybe he could be one of the God of War guys.
He's more suitable for Gears of War. Like Kratos, there's just very few actors around that could play Kratos.
And the voice should still be Christopher Judge from the new duology.
That's the problem. And I think God of War is another one that's been in talks to be a potential Amazon TV show, I think, is what's happening.
Oh, come on. And they're going to give it the fucking Rings of Power treatment.
Oh,
right?
Hell yeah. And the person making it was like, nah, I've never seen or played God of War. But I'm super excited to be a part of the show. It's like, are you? I think if I was given the job to direct the God of War fucking series,
I would play it. Yes.
I'd do a little bit of fucking homework, and I'd expect to have to
even
play
if they
those
told
games.
me not to. Oh, don't play them because they're gonna cloud your judgment. Just go in fresh. I would play them anyway secretly just to make sure.
100%. And there's been examples of that, and especially with comic book movies, of the actual Disney saying to creators, "Oh, don't read the source material. This is your own thing," and it's like. No, I think that's a completely wrong way to look at it, and it never garners good results.
It always depends. It goes case by case. I'm gonna go on a little bit of a tangent here, but Star Wars, for example. This is something that Star Wars fans have been saying for the longest time. Oh, don't, you should give you should give the franchise to people who care, who are fans, who are nerds about all the little details about the story and the lore. And those are like people like Dave Filoni or John Favreau, who have made stuff like The Mandalorian and Ahsoka, that are shows that are just nostalgia fest, just fucking cameo town. Like every other episode, there's a character from the animated TV show or from the larger canon appearing. Oh, is that guy? Do you remember Glorbo Fraklocklocklunks? No, I do not. And even if I did, I would not care. And like sometimes when you do the thing that you think the fans want, you're actually doing a disservice to the story that you could tell.
Yeah, that's
Because
why
then
Neil Druckmann killed Joel.
there you go. But like in Star Wars, like the best thing to come out of Star Wars, and I'm sure we're gonna talk about it in the coming weeks because it's wrapping up its second season, its second and unfortunately final season. It's Andor. And Andor is amazing. It's so well done. It's so well crafted. It's amazing storytelling, great dialogue. It's incredible. And it's Star Wars made by Tony Gilroy, who fucking doesn't care at all about Star Wars. But he has people there with him that are like, okay, you craft the story as you want, and we are going to help you fill in the gaps with the lore and kind of like adapt the story to what you actually can do within the confinement of the Star Wars universe.
Yeah.
And they've done this incredibly. It's so like it's jaw dropping how good this show is. And I keep saying this because so many people are skipping Andor because Disney Star Wars is such a mess, and it is. I've hated most of it, but Andor is fucking great, and it's done by someone who's not a fan of Star Wars, who just understands storytelling and understands what needs to happen for people to be happy and engaged in a story.
Yeah.
So
I think if you've got a super talented filmmaker, director, or whatever, writers, the quality should always shine through no matter what. And with something like Star Wars, where you have kind of exhausted your main timeline options, you're now getting all these little spin-offs and smaller stories just set within the world that aren't touching upon the main continuation of like the original story or whatever. Then I think it's fine to branch out and be like, oh, I'll get this really good action director to come in and do like a John Wick style Star Wars story or whatever.
yeah,
I think that's absolutely fine. I think when you're doing your first God of War series, and this is season 1, the first adaptation of God of War, and the guys, whoever it is saying they have no affiliation or play the games or don't know anything about the games. That doesn't bode.
that's worrying.
That doesn't bode well for me.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
But I suppose we'll crack into our top 3 now. We've covered a few decent ones already, but this is the cream of the crop right here.
Well, I mean, there's very few ones to pick from.
No, this is your top 3 movies of all time. This is you said this is better than The Godfather Part 2, so
some of it are.
We do your number 3, then my number 3, and your number 2, then my. Number 2.
I think you shared your top 3 with me yesterday, but I didn't share mine because I was still thinking about it.
You little tease, aren't you? You little tease.
I'm a little tease. But I know your third one, and that's why I put in third place Street Fighter. I mean, it's one of those movies that doesn't really need to be explained. It's Jean-Claude Van Damme, and I watched the VHS at a friend's house, and my life was forever changed. It's like 90s action cheese. It's a guilty pleasure. It's a bad movie, whatever you want to say. But there's Raul Julia, who plays the main villain, Bison, was a motherfucker in the game. It was always kicking my ass when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't able to even fucking. I was bad at games. I'm still bad at games. That didn't change. But Raul Julia of Adam's Family fucking fame plays this villain so perfectly. It's so much fun. is so over the top, and I think this was his last role before his untimely death, unfortunately. So it's like this great legacy, and I think he did the role because his kids told him to, because it was like, oh, this is gonna be this is a great movie.
Yeah,
And
I've seen that little interview where he's saying that. Yeah.
and it's a cute little film in compared to how they would do a Street Fighter movie now. It's so quaint and so, like, it's not even a 90s movie, it's an 80s movie. It's like it's so just, yeah. And the fights are fun. It's a very tongue-in-cheek. I think it knows it's silly, and it plays with it a lot. So yeah, it's a great little movie.
Yeah, and clearly some iconic performances here, because I feel like there's pictures and memes of that film that have lived on ever since. So yeah, definitely something I'll have to check out. Then I'm sure I would quite enjoy it.
For you, the day M. Bison graced your village was the most important day of your life. For me, it was Tuesday. That's an actual line. That's a cold ass line from M. Bison,
That's a good line.
who devastated Chun-Li's village and killed her parents. And she wants revenge, and he's like, "Oh, I don't even remember who you are." Kind of like a Thanos situation here, but even cooler.
Okay. Yeah, good solid choice. I suppose, yeah, my third choice is in a very similar vein. I know this film is not very good. If it's standing on its own merits, it's pretty shocking, actually. But Mortal Kombat, the 1995 original movie.
All right. I knew it.
Yeah, I think a lot of this just comes from I love Mortal Kombat as not even necessarily the games, because that style of fighting game, I used to like them, but it's not something I've ever been like really hooked on, and I find that they can get quite boring after a little bit of playing. But
can be repetitive.
But me and my little brother, we always tuned in for like the next Mortal Kombat game, because I love playing the campaign, and like where each game kind of extends some more on the lore and the characters, add new characters in. I think Ed Boon, the guy that makes it, he's come up with such a rich world of really cool, interesting characters with interesting powers and abilities. It's a really hard one to try and adapt into a film or TV show.
Movie, yeah.
Because of the concept.
Because of the tournament.
Exactly, the concept is so final. It's like we go to this place, this character fights this character, and they die, and which is why maybe the most recent movie tried to do something a bit different with it, and I don't think was very successful in doing so.
I thought the new Mortal Kombat had some cool moments in it.
It
wasn't a bad.
Cool moments of action, but the characters, like the new main character is one of the worst.
That was a nothing guy.
One of the worst protagonists I've seen in anything. Yeah. He literally, like at the end of the film, he's like, his big rallying speech is like, we must stick together. We must fight together. Together we will be stronger. Together we will beat them. It's like, oh, fucking hell, man. Where'd they find this guy?
Well, to be fair to the new Mortal Kombat movie, in the Street Fighter film, the rousing speech that Jean-Claude Van Damme gives before the big fight at the end is like, would you rather go home or come with me? It's like something like that. So I don't know if, maybe they don't know how to do it.
Maybe if the newer version of Mortal Kombat had come out back in 1995 and I saw it when I was younger, I would have the same level of affinity for it. But no,
maybe they're not good at public speaking, man. Like just give him a break.
And yeah, this it's got some awful moments of CGI and visual effects in this film. There's I think there's a bit where Scorpion does his classic come over here and he shoots out. They decide to like do visual effects of the kind of spear that comes out of his wrist, and it's one of the worst looking things I've ever seen.
You're talking about the old one now.
This is the old one. Yeah. The new one looks fucking fantastic. All the fatalities and stuff are great in it. if you could just take
They should remake the story and everything about the 1995 one with the graphics of the new one.
That would have been a better movie. It would have been a better movie.
Yeah.
And yeah, cause obviously you're focusing, which apparently the new Mortal Kombat film is bringing back Carl Urban. He's going to be Johnny Cage, and he's going to be the lead in Mortal Kombat 2, which should be good. It's how they should have done it in the first place, because Johnny Cage is your good entry point into this mad world as like a fish out of water,
an actor.
Yeah, and it's there's just so many great characters, and the campaigns of Mortal Kombat have always been really interesting. And I think that's probably why I hold this film in such high regard. Also, incredible soundtrack, one of the best. Yeah, one of the best themes ever made for a game. I absolutely love it. And if you watch this original one back, Goro still looks amazing. The practical effects on Goro, like the big monster with four arms,
the big guy with
genuinely still looks awesome to this day. That the scene where him and Johnny Cage fight,
two great movies back to back. What other big fighting franchises they could make a movie out of? I guess Soul Calibur. No.
What's that? What's the one with all it's like super hyper sexualized Dead or Alive?
Dead or Alive,
the Japanese one.
Dead or Alive.
There you go.
Is not
Sydney. Take Sydney Sweeney and Anna de Armas from Eden and put them in the Dead or Alive remake.
Yeah, but I want them to do a movie about the volleyball spin-off that they did about Dead or Alive, where you actually just play volleyball on a beach with like all the female characters, I should say, from Dead or Alive in skimpy outfits, and it was amazing and glorious. My cousin had that game, and I went to her house all the time just to be like, "Oh, can I play your Xbox for a little while?" And I would play Dead or Alive, the volleyball game.
Great game, a masterpiece for its time. Yeah, I think when it comes to fighting games, for me anyway, because Mortal Kombat's always been my favorite. I think there's so much potential and they've made loads of animated Mortal Kombat films over the years. That some of them have been really good, some of them have been pretty bad. Yeah, I feel like there's always like somebody could really hit that nail on the head and make an incredible Mortal Kombat film or series that could do really well. Did you ever watch? It was like a short on YouTube. It's like a 15-minute short, and it was a proof of concept to try and make a Mortal Kombat film.
I think I did. Yeah, it was talked about a lot when it came out because it was so well done.
So well,
Sub-Zero and Scorpion.
It's brilliantly made, and it's like it's a realistic take on Mortal Kombat. It's like, what if like Baraka is just Baraka's
I do remember.
A real guy who's like surgically put like knives in his arms,
blades,
and there's no supernatural abilities necessarily, and it was it seemed like it could have been something really interesting, and I know they made a YouTube series from that short that wasn't ever that good, but like a film in that tone, like with a decent budget, good cast, could be fucking really awesome, I think.
Wouldn't you want them to keep the more fantastical aspect if they do an adaptation, though?
100%. But they are so unable to somehow work that into the story. Like in the new one, they discover powers called Chi. Yeah. And they each, and like Kano, who's the Australian guy with the laser eye, he develops a robotic eye with his Chi, and fucking and Jax, who has the big metal arms, right? He has little baby like dinosaur metal arms because he gets his arms taken off by Sub-Zero. And then when he discovers his Chi and he needs to lift this rock and his little baby metal arms can't do it, they turn into big like cyborg arms. And it's like, what is going on?
How does that work?
So the Chi, the magic, creates technology too? It's like, they did it terribly in that film.
In my word, they are one and the same. Like Thor said back in the day. Magic and technology are the same thing.
Which is the only reason why I think a more realistic take could be done in a more achievable manner and could make a better film. But I would like to see
Yeah, and
even
as a
more.
TV show, it would definitely be more budget friendly, I guess.
Yeah,
Cost effective to
yeah,
do it like that. So
yeah, definitely. I suppose eventually I'd have the same problems with it. I'd be like, well, what's the point in having Shang-Chi if he's got no powers? Or not Shang-Chi, Shang Tsung.
I was like, what is Shang-Chi doing here? Wasn't he supposed to be in Avengers? That's why they haven't shown him again, because he's off doing fucking Mortal Kombat
He's the
movies
new
all the time.
villain in Mortal Kombat. Yeah, okay.
All
Well, I
right.
suppose we'll go on to. Do you want to do your number 2?
I mean, I think we can briefly do our number 2 because it's gonna be the same. And it's gonna be The Last of Us season 1. I picked The Last of Us because we've already discussed about what we like about the show. So we won't go into. We'll link the old video somewhere here so that people can go check it out. But yeah, it's a great show. It's one of those rare cases where they took the source material. Neil Druckmann was involved in the production of the show. Not that that's necessarily a good thing, but he was one of the creative voices for the first game. So to have him kind of like there together with Craig Mazin, they brought the gaming elements that they wanted to recreate and a story that makes sense for an episodic TV show format, and they brought them together, and I think they did a fantastic job. Still a few blemishes, we've mentioned them. Lack of infected in a lot of episodes, rushed storylines, but the core relationship between Joel and Ellie, Pedro Pascal's performance especially, and just generally the world that they've managed to create for the screen, I thought was fantastically done. And yeah, unfortunately, the second season, like the second game, does not hold up to that level of quality.
Is the adaptation of season 1 better than if you were to compile the cutscenes together of the game? Do you think it's better, or it's still the game is superior still?
That's the beauty of it, I think, that I cannot answer that question because I prefer the game. And
Yeah.
my subjective opinion is that the game is better. But these two products uh, have value of their own.
Oh,
The
definitely.
Last of Us show decides not to just focus on Joel and Ellie, which is the main focus of the game, because you are playing as Joel and you're traveling through the country with Ellie, and you run into other characters, yes, but you are a spectator to their stories. While here, with the TV show format, you manage to move perspective and show more of the world around these two characters, and they flesh them out. Some stories are well realized, some are not as good. But the idea of expanding the world around these two characters, I thought was really successful and makes the show shine in its own right, even though I do still prefer the game.
Yeah, I think the game for me is still superior in storytelling, but this was a great adaptation. Does everything you want with an adaptation. You want it to touch on the best key moments, almost shot for shot, because why change something if it's that good? But then fleshes out areas that the game couldn't flesh out. And we get that in certain areas and make little changes here and there, but overall, yeah, I really enjoyed The Last of Us season 1, and it's yeah, I think fair to put it on this list as one of the best video game adaptations. If we're just looking at season 1, that is.
Yeah. Season 1 was one story before they decided to continue it.
Exactly.
So, you should judge it on its own merits. And it's amazing.
We'll go on to your top choice then.
Okay, my top choice for best video game adaptation of all time is Arcane.
I assumed this would probably feature in my list as well if I had seen it. I've also never played Arcane, but I have heard the first season of the Netflix show is really, really strong.
I don't know how much this counts, honestly. I don't know how much it can be considered an adaptation since from my understanding, it bears little to no resemblance to the game itself. It's a MOBA, I think they're called. It's like top-down perspective. You have one character and you go around the map. You need to collect like flags, like classic, take the flag or like beat the enemy. And you have your character that you choose from, like you choose from a roster of 1,000 characters. I've never played League of Legends. I don't care about League of Legends. I don't care about this type of games. And everyone I know who does has told me, don't get into it because it's basically fucking drugs and you won't be able to stop and you will play all the time. So I'm not gonna do that to myself. Even though, I liked Arcane season 1 so much that I kind of wanted to get into the games too, but it's a kind of like a kind of game that doesn't really appeal to me. I prefer story driven, first person, third person, action adventure RPG games. So it's not my thing. But this show was my thing. This show is enough because season 1 of Arcane to me is absolute peak fiction. It's incredible. It's so surprising. Characters, like you are in this world of Zon, the city of Zon, which is part of this larger world that we are learning more about with each season. And the lore of it, it's so rich, and all these characters are so unique, and like the look of the world, like the animation. I mean, everyone has been talking about the animation of the show. It's insane. They took 3 years to make a season 2 because I think it takes a week to just render one fucking frame of this thing. It's incredible how this show looks and how much attention went into every little detail. And the storyline is really engaging in the first season. You have this relationship between these two sisters, and you kind of like see them grow, and until this very traumatic event kind of like splits them apart. And as well, there's this split, just as there's this split between these two sisters, there's this split between these two different parts of the city of Zon built over, and like the underground kind of like, let's call it, of the city. That it's like the poor and the rich, the powerful and the powerless, and all these games of power within the factions, the police, payroll of these criminal overlords. It's a really rich and interesting world with like monsters and like different species. It's not just humans. There's also these like weird little creatures. And there's this concept of magic and how these characters are developing this magic to kind of like serve as technology. So like magic and technology, this is a theme today, I guess. I don't know, I don't want to go too much into the storyline because I guess everyone knows that this show is good. And I didn't know anything about it. People who play the game knew kind of like what to expect from certain characters. I did not, and I was so pleasantly surprised by like specific developments in the story. So I won't go into that. One issue that I have with the show is that a lot is crammed into a pretty tight space. Would have loved a longer season, more seasons. But I guess with, animation of that quality, they had to make some very hard cuts and decisions. And the second season, unfortunately, suffers from this the most. It's not nearly as polished as season 1. And I feel like first season was setting up stuff that wasn't really the focus of season 2. Like they changed course all of a sudden. They're like, oh, we're going to explore all these other things at the periphery of the story of season 1. So it loses a lot of that focus that made season 1 so good. And it becomes a little bit more messy, even though, again, even if it's confusing, even if it's, maybe you need to rewatch it a couple of times, the animation is just so gorgeous. It's so inspired. Every shot, like the music, and like so many moments are basically music videos. It's incredible. It's a one of a kind. You don't get this level of quality from animation anywhere else on TV, in my opinion. It's at the levels of Spider-Verse for how good it looks. And even if season 2 is a mess from a story perspective because it tries to tackle so much in so little time, it's still very interesting, and I would recommend watching it.
How long are the episodes each?
It's like an hour long, like
Oh, really?
45 to an
Okay.
hour
Yeah,
long
yeah.
every episode, and each season is like 8 to 10 episodes. So yeah.
Yeah, it's been on my watch list for a little while. I've heard people gushing about first season, and I think when you're looking around at what people, like Reddit forums or whatever, when people are saying what are their favorite video game adaptations, this is now appearing on pretty much everybody's list who seems to have seen it. So yeah, getting praise all round, and it's definitely something that I will watch. And maybe when I've watched it, if we can do a bit of a deep dive into it and on a
Yeah,
later
a little follow
episode.
up.
Yeah, it's definitely. I think it's
Would
something
love to
that
hear your thoughts.
I think it's definitely something I would enjoy and would want to get into.
Nice. Well, I know your next one was going to be your first pick. So go ahead.
Would this have been in your picks if it hadn't have been in mine?
I guess so, yeah. But kind of like, I guess you sending me your list kind of like influenced me into making a list that kind of like talked to yours, was in conversation with yours.
Yeah, yeah,
So that,
yeah.
so yeah. I'm glad that this one was on your list. So we can talk about it.
Yeah, I know you thoroughly enjoyed it too. It's Cyberpunk Edge Runners. It came out in 2022. Just dropped on Netflix. It was kind of I think it came out somewhat in a similar time as the DLC maybe to Cyberpunk.
Shortly before, maybe? I'm not sure.
This is a perfect example of how you would do an adaptation of a game that's not entirely linear. There is a story going on
Yeah.
in Cyberpunk, but there's so much free roaming and little things you can do, and you can choose your own path or whatever. So this just takes a little slice of that and the themes and everything, and just gives us a different character and gives you their unique story, but within the world that we know of Cyberpunk, featuring little elements of lore or characters we've referenced in the games. It's just perfect, and if you don't need any prior knowledge of the games to enjoy the show, it's a really good standalone story in itself. Expertly animated. Like the opening sequence is so cool when we see the cyber psycho guy being taken down by the SWAT team.
Yeah.
The action's just amazing, and there's obviously they use this implant which slows down time, and all those sequences were super colorful and really good. So you get these like pausing in time moments and this mass violence, but very beautifully
Yeah, it's
depicted on screen.
Studio Trigger is the one who did the animation. They are super talented Japanese studio. They did a bunch of series and cool movies. So yeah, amazing action here. Very kinetic, very kinetic, and like hyper violent action.
Yeah,
Super fun.
yeah. The movement of everything's really great, and it captures that dark and somber tone that cyberpunk is just like riddled with. It's it's not afraid to like end on an incredibly solemn and sad note. No, I don't spoil the ending.
Oh my god, what a gut punch! Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's how it should end. And if it ended any other way, then it would have been disingenuous to the story, because of what happens with the main character. It's the journey on the way and the people you meet along the way that really make the world exciting in cyberpunk. And it's the same for this show, and it's the same for the game. Um, I would say maybe the protagonist is not the most interesting character in Edge Runners.
No,
Even though
David.
David's very good, I feel like this side characters sort of steal the show more than he does, and that's the same for the game. All the side characters you meet in the game are more interesting than your point of view character. And we did a bit of a deep dive into Cyberpunk on our last episode, and we were talking about how the cyber psycho element is a real cool addition to the lore, and there's repercussions for adding all these cyber enhancements to your body. You start to go crazy, you can't handle it, and you start to lose your mind and you become violent. And it's something that the game teased at doing, but didn't really fulfill on its promise of delving into that dichotomy and that problem that could come up with enhancing your body like that. Whereas the whole crux of this story is, should you add all these cyber enhancements to your body, you're going to become stronger, faster, etc. But at the end of the line, it's a short road, and this will lead to your downfall no matter what. So is it worth it to become a Night City legend, which is obviously what a big part of it's like achieving the Hollywood dream in Night City is just becoming a legend.
Yeah.
And it's great. I thought this was awesome. So many great characters in this.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's a great show. I watched it, as I told you, in our Cyberpunk review. I watched it before experiencing the game, so I'm really curious to go back with the added context of what the game is, and like how, because I went to see, I found this video. I'm gonna send it to you if I find it again. Where they're kind of like comparing shots from the show to like screenshots from the game,
Oh,
like
cool.
like explorable areas in the game, and you can really tell that the creators, like Studio Trigger, went and like visited the map of Night City and found cool spots and took screenshots, and then they based the drawings for the show on that, because like the geography is almost perfectly replicated from the game. So like the story is original, the characters are original, but the real kind of like character here is Night City
Yes.
itself.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they need to nail that, and it makes sense for CD Projekt Red for them to want for the city to be shown in all its glory and all its beauty, so that when people maybe go from watching it runners to buying the game, they find that same vibe and that same
Exactly.
colorful and horrible place of Night City.
And we were saying those attention to details when you know the source material really well, it plays great with the fans. And like I said,
Absolutely.
many people dived back into the game to go and maybe I'll go find this area, or there might be a reference to this character in this moment, and I want to replay that again to see that. It's those details bring people back for sure.
Absolutely. Going back to what you were saying about the story, I personally think that the story is fine. I like the story, I like the characters, but I have a problem with it, that it's a similar problem that I had with the Arcane show, and it feels a bit rushed. Like, I was so surprised when I realized it was just 10 episodes, because when I got into it, I didn't know. I was just expecting a regular kind of like 20 episode anime, TV show season. And then it was just 10 episodes, and it was one of those, it was not just 10 episodes, it was a one and done kind of thing, like it's a long movie,
Yeah.
basically. And I was getting really into it, and then plot point after plot point started to hit, characters dying, and I was like, wait a second, what's going on? Like this is getting too fast, too quick. Which it makes sense for the story they're telling. This character is enhancing himself to a degree that kind of like puts, kind of like in the game, puts a little bit of a ticking time bomb into the story. But yeah, I felt like they could have fleshed out the story a little bit more, and I guess this was just like with Arcane, budget constraint.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't have enough money for that level of animation to be sustained over like a longer season or a longer
Yeah.
project, and I
Yeah.
didn't know if they would be as successful, so they crammed all this cool story that they had in a smaller package, I guess. And it's fine, and I really enjoyed it, but I wished it was a little bit more than that.
Yeah,
But yeah, really good.
it leaves you wanting a lot more, and it leaves you wanting a part 2 to the series or whatever, and maybe that never happens. But as we said in our review of Cyberpunk, such a cool immersive world. You could do so many of these Edge Runner type shows set in Cyberpunk. Little vignette stories of crazy things which are happening to the criminal group or whoever. And it would be so interesting. I think hopefully we do see more, and I think Edge Runners was pretty successful for Netflix, so hopefully we do see some more. But to be honest, it's crazy that that's my number one, because I think it's really good, but like you said, yeah, story wise, it does seem a bit rushed. They're not necessarily breaking any new ground here. I might give Edge Runners like an 8 out of 10.
Yeah, it's a
Overall.
testament to how how poor the output for video game adaptation has been so
It's
far.
crazy. It's crazy that that's potentially the best, and yeah, the best ones have come out in the last few years. But
I mean, the best one, even though it's not like a real video game movie because it's not a video game adaptation per se, but Scott Pilgrim versus the World is a fantastic movie.
yeah, is that
So
not a comic
maybe
book adaptation?
it's a graphic novel, and then they made a game, I think, and then they made the movie. So I guess it kind of counts
Yeah,
because
okay.
there's a lot of gaming lingo and like iconography
Yeah.
used in the film.
I mean, if
But yeah,
that was to count, then yeah, that blows kind of any of these out the water. To be honest, Scott Pilgrim versus the World or Street Fighter.
oh come on. But one is an Edgar Wright masterpiece, just of like fucking direction and fun ideas of editing, and just Michael Cera at his
Oh,
very best.
it's peak cinema, and like
Yeah, yeah.
I think we're sort of grading up on a scale when they're video game adaptations slightly because the rest are so poor. You know, to say that these three are the best, yeah, they wouldn't reach the top three of a different non-video game adaptation list. I doubt of any of our
Well,
stuff.
I think Arcane could be like one of the best animated things I've ever seen,
Okay.
even divorced from the kind of like video game aspect of it, because it's not really like I don't base it on how faithful it is to the source material because I don't know the source material. So
Yeah. Well, yeah, that was our top three, and we did a few other mentions for you there. Let us know. Let us know in the comments what are your top three favorite video game adaptations to films or TV series, or what are some of your worst ones. Make sure to join in the conversation with us.
yeah, and let's rewatch. All of us, let's just rewatch Street Fighter tonight, just for fun, you know. Jean-Claude Van Damme, Raul Julia, amazing movie. Let's watch it.
I gotta watch the
and
fucking
welcome.
old Super Mario film first.
Oh come, that's probably a good time. You know, like you could do great movies of the '90s. You can start with Howard the Duck, then do Mario movie, and then either Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter. And you have the great masterpieces of our time.